Ladies and gentlemen, it is 9:30, so I will call the June 9th meeting to order. And as always, I will ask you to silence all of your electronic devices. Mostly that applies to me. But we always start our meeting with the pledge and the prayer, and this morning we are blessed to have Rabbi Yankee Majeski from the Shabbat of North Orlando here with us. Thank you, Rabbi, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here representing the Jewish community of Seminole County. The history of prayer before sessions is almost as old as this country itself. And when I was invited to say the prayer this morning, I asked myself, this is not a synagogue, a church, or mosque, so why a prayer? But the obvious answer to me, and it goes back to ancient Israel and in the Bible, the Torah, the Bible instructs us that a Jewish king must write for himself a Torah scroll that accompanies him at all times. Why does a political leader need a religious article near him? Every human being makes decisions every day that affects their lives and the lives of their families. But government make decisions that affect not only themselves, but hundreds and thousands of people, and indeed generations to come. Being human, it's almost impossible to always make the right decision, especially when we take account our own biases, egos, and agendas. This is why a Jewish king, according to the Torah, had to always have the scroll near him. Starting with a prayer helps us stay humble, helps us remember that Hashem, God, is watching and listening, and indeed we pray for the Almighty's assistance that we remain dedicated, honest, just, kind, and always put the interest of our citizens first. When it comes to prayer, there's no need for me to reinvent the wheel. I'll go back to the original, a prayer composed by God himself, written down in the Torah and the Bible through Moses in the book of Numbers, still said in synagogues today. Prayer is a prayer that Aaron, the brother of Moses, was instructed to say, and his children, his descendants in our communities still recite this blessing to all of us today. And I'll say it first in Hebrew and then in English. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemar, daber el Aaron v'al banav lemar kaisavarchu es b'nei Yisrael amar lahem, yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, yisa Adonai panav elecha, v'yasem lecha shalom. May God bless you and guard you. May God shine his countenance upon you and be gracious to you. May God turn his countenance toward you and grant you peace. May God bless the United States. May God bless our commissioners. May God bless all those that serve this community, including law enforcement and the firefighters and first responders. And may God bless Seminole County. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good job.
I'll ask County Manager, any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Commissioners. On the County Manager's consent agenda, I have 3 items I'd like to pull this morning. First is item number 5. I will be bringing that back at the next meeting for a short presentation. It's regarding our AI policy. Also, item number 13, which was our ISBA agreement, commencing it with the City of Sanford. I will be bringing that back, as well as item 16. I'd like to pull that as well. That one was regarding bear cans with the Wekiva Wild and Scenic River Advisory Committee. They had initially told us that they had funding. They're still looking at that. However, we have already received $25,000 from the Fish and Wildlife, so we're already moving forward with the $25,000 grant with them, and that will be coming forward as well to the board. Just those 3 items, Madam Chairman, and that's it.
Thank you, County Manager. Commissioners, any items to pull?
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull item number 7 for a quick discussion.
Any others, Commissioners?
I'm good.
All right. Do we have any public comments
Yes, ma'am. There are 2 speakers.
on the consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'll turn it over to our county attorney to read the rules of the day.
Thank you, Chairman. Florida law provides that members of the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard on propositions before the Board of County Commissioners, except when the board is acting in an emergency or ministerial capacity or conducting a meeting exempt from the requirements of the Sunshine Law. Individuals shall be permitted 3 minutes each for public comment or 6 minutes when the individual is an official representative of a formal association or group. The chairman may modify the maximum time for public comment at her sole discretion when appropriate. Public comments on quasi-judicial or other public hearing items will occur during the board's consideration of those items. Public comments on pending procurement matters or on non-agenda items shall not be permitted at this time. Members of the public desiring to make public comment must fill out a speaker form and present the form to staff, and forms are available in the lobby. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Would you call the first speaker, please?
The first speaker is Bill Hyde in opposition to Agenda Item 14.
Dominique, would you mind calling the second speaker as well so they can be ready?
Yes, ma'am. Second speaker is Wynn Adams.
Mr. Adams, if you would be on deck, that would be great.
Chairman, are you ready?
I am ready. Are you ready, Mr. Hyde?
I'm ready. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bill Hyde. I live at 2379 Audley Street in Oviedo, Florida. Just for a piece of trivia, may not be relevant, but may explain why I got interested in this. I hold a commercial radio telephone operator's license with a radar endorsement from the Federal Communications Commission. And I'm questioning the wisdom and the practicality of the use of WUCF for this purpose. I researched WUCF's coverage, and on the map that you see up here, and by the way, this came from the Federal Communications Commission, it's a public document. This is the 60 microvolt per meter radius, and it does not extend to Sanford. The reason why that's important is because that radius, that 60 microvolts per meter line, delineates what the FCC considers to be local coverage. Anything outside of that is either some kind of a fringe coverage. Now, outside of that, they define that you may be able to hear the signal if you have an outside antenna. In other words, if you're driving around your car with an outside antenna, an FM radio would probably pick it up. But during an emergency, people aren't driving around, they're in their house, and an FM radio in your house is not going to have an outside antenna. So this is actually a fringe area that we're in right now. I would think that the EOC would prefer a station that is local to all of Seminole. One more thing is, I tried to find the local ratings for WUCF. It would seem to be a good idea to partner with a station that actually has people that listen to it. And to be honest with you, I couldn't find WUCF's ratings in the Nielsen rating. I did look for them. So the problem is not only do you not get the signal, but I don't think anybody's listening. I think maybe if you're going to partner with somebody for this, it would be a station that, has more coverage and more listeners. I'll tell you something, I would be willing to bet that there are more ham radio operators listening to the repeater that you guys run from the EOC during an emergency than there are people actually listening to WUCF. So why are we giving WUCF $7,000 of our taxpayer dollars? I'll leave it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Mr. Adams?
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Wynn Adams. I'm a former county commissioner. I'm also treasurer of our homeowners, our condo association, Coach Light Estates Section 2. The item that I have concern about is item number 7, where we're talking about going out and spending close to $4 million on buying a new building based upon what is going on with potential tax cuts due to the governor's actions. I think that we should probably table that until we find out what we're going to do with our budget. And that, fortunately, you're going to be able to do, hopefully, that today. But I would highly recommend that you do not pass item 7 until you have your budget discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. Harris, do you have something to share with us?
I was going to have, excuse me, Mr. Harris, comment on item 14.
Thank you.
Sure. For the record, Alan Harris, Director of Emergency Management. So the WUCF agreement is a renewal agreement. We started that agreement in 2011. We do test the system regularly before hurricane season. We have tested it in this building using a small FM portable radio. No general fund tax dollars, no property taxes are paid for on this. It is totally paid for out of the Emergency Management Preparedness and Assistance Trust Fund. That is a trust fund that's given to each local emergency management office using insurance costs. So part of your insurance goes to local emergency management, very small amount, but it goes to it specifically for preparedness and awareness. During an emergency, we work with the Office of Communications. In fact, the entire process of renewing this agreement, we worked with the Office of Communications to make sure that they are poised and ready to push out when there's an emergency. This is the radio station to tune into that guarantees us our information being broadcasted multiple times through the day and also at the top of the hour. It's actually in the agreement, at the top of the hour. So everyone in Seminole County can tune into that station during a hurricane. Now, I'd love to do that with another radio station, but for that cost, it's just impossible. So just wanted to bring you up to date. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, I'm just going to throw it back to you all. Would you like to reconsider any of the items after public comment?
I'm ready to make a motion.
So regarding the WUCF contract, I don't have a problem with moving it forward today, but would it be possible to show this contract to other local stations and see what their reaction would be if it's something that that they would even entertain? I think
We did, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
Okay.
and the cost point was considerably higher.
Okay, so you shopped it?
Sorry? Yes.
So you have already shopped it?
We do shop it, yes, we do. Every time we renew the agreement, just like we do with any procurement item, we seek multitudes of different proposals and quotes, and this one was the most economical. They could guarantee us this. They also do, they develop public service announcements for us that we can use personally inside of the county, as well as they can use on the radio station. So there are a couple different components to this particular agreement.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Zimbauer?
I will move to approve constitutional officers item number 1, county managers items 2, 3, 4, 6, 12, 14, 15, 17 through 21.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Wait.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
I think Commissioner Zimbauer missed 8, 9, and 10.
Yes.
I did. How about that?
So how about 1
8
through 21 with the exception of 5, 13, 16, and 7?
There you go.
Still second.
We still have a second. All right, no further
Good catch.
discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, it passes unanimously. All right, I'll take it back to item 7. Commissioner Delara, you pulled this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to have a quick discussion. I know that I've been talking to staff about it, and I know we need to purchase, or we need to put utility departments somewhere because of the rental and the condition of reflections. And it does make sense to move them into a different space. I was first under the impression that we'd be moving them into the new county services building because we're trying to centralize everything. And I asked about why aren't we moving that into the new county services building that we're putting in 5 Points. And they said it was cost prohibited. And they said that the new building over by Redbug and Tuscaloosa, by Spring Villa Point, would run somewhere just above $300 per square foot. And so then I asked what was the cost of the projected all-in cost of the new county services building, and it's a little over $1,000 per square foot, $1,045 a square foot. That's what I received in an email. And I just think that that's excessive because I thought that we were going after a Class B plus building, not a Class A building. And then I looked at it, and it said that it included the building, the parking garage, the site work, and the consultants. Well, I know the Class B building, brand new, runs anywhere between $300 to $500 a square foot. I know the parking garage raises it, but I can't see it raising it that amount of money, and I just would like to get more clarification, because we are taking another piece of property off the tax rolls, and so that I would hope that we'd have more discussion about this, because we as a group have not had this discussion in any great detail. And so that's why I wanted to pull it, so we can have that discussion and figure out, are we going to move forward, or do we need to have more information?
Commissioner Zimbauer?
So I've gone through this quite a bit and been briefed and asked a lot of questions of staff, and thank you, staff, for answering those. The one part, Commissioner Delary, that I think is very pressing, and we can debate the cost for square foot differences and so forth, but the building they're currently in is not safe. There's black mold been discovered. The owner of that facility has not moved forward to remediate or correct that. So I think we have a safety issue for our folks that are currently there that need to be moved out. This also puts them in close proximity to infrastructure which they would engage with. Instead of being at 5 Points, they'd actually be closer to one of our water system plants, as well as remotely located to hit other parts of the county. The square footage number, I called several individuals, and I got prices less than $1,000 per square foot, but they were significantly twice as much or more than what this building cost was. It was my experience when I reached out.
Yes, Commissioner Lockhart?
I've also had briefings with staff and asked a lot of questions about this, and I think, just for the record, the environmental services team has already moved out of that building, and they're co-located right now with emergency management.
Correct.
So we did thankfully, get the folks out of there as quickly as we could, so they're not still currently operating in that building. We have rented that space for decades, and when we look at the amount of money that we have spent as a tenant in that building over the years, we could have bought this new building many times over. So I think it's time. I do think that the location makes good sense. I think that, wanting to wait until we are ready to move forward with all of the 5 Points movement is too long to wait for them to get into their own place. So we would wind up having to rent another temporary space in the meantime. I think this is it makes the most sense, and so I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Do you have?
I was just going to say, I'm glad that Commissioner Delary brought this up, because these are questions that we have to discuss each time. I also, over the last number of days, received information from the county manager and staff on this. I would also indicate that there will be no built-in. It's already completed, ready to go. So that is a plus that we would not have normally. And all the furniture is already there, and we've gotten all of that, and it all can be used. Now, if that is not correct,
You're
and
correct.
so those things did add to the price, but it is reasonable within the request, and also in a highly desirable area that if, as someone indicated, we may not want to do this in the situation, I believe it is also enterprise funds that's purchasing this, not tax dollars, and that we would probably sell it for a much better price later on. So it's an investment.
And Madam Chairman, if you don't
Yes.
mind, I just add, and I appreciate those are all good comments, and Commissioner Delary and I have had many conversations about this as well. Tagging on to Commissioner Constantine's question, this is paid for out of our enterprise fund, the utilities fund. We already had a building already slated to a new building for utilities. As you know, they've been in lease space for quite a number of years. We are one of our main priorities is to move out of lease space into county-owned space. we had to fast track this this year. This wasn't until a couple years down the road that we were looking at this because of the issues in the current facility that utilities is facing, and then we had to move them out within a couple of weeks and find them temporary space. So my recommendation is to move forward, and this building is centralized to our water plants as well, and it makes sense. And it was never intended for utilities to move into our new county administration building. One, there's really no need for them to be in that building, and it is a Class B building. And we're going to be briefing all the commissioners on that. The design team is almost finished with the planning where we're recommending for folks to go, and so we'll be briefing the board on that soon. But as you know, we talked about this at the retreat a couple months ago. We listed all the occupants of the new building in there, and we just know that utility staff was never going to go into the county administration building. Again, we were looking at another facility to build them at some time, and this just fast-tracked it again for a couple of years. So I would recommend that we move forward with it.
Commissioners, I've already said everything that I would have said has already been said. I'll not repeat it. Commissioner Delory?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to have open dialogue because we haven't had any real conversations about this. With that open dialogue, I feel confident that we're making the right decision, so I would make the motion to approve it.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, well, that takes us on to the big portion of today. It is that time of the year again, so I'll start by saying Happy New Year. It's budget season. And I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Gray, for opening comments for our budget work session number 2.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Commissioners. Yes, this is, actually, we have been preparing for this budget. We immediately started working on this budget after the last year's budget was adopted. One thing that I had told our team is that this was going to be an easy year. Well, it turned out differently, but anyway, but we do have in my opinion, a great budget in front of you, and again, I will be making some opening comments, but first I'd like to go over the agenda for the next 2 days that we'll be here. Starting out this morning, I thought with the governor putting out the plan with the proposal with property tax reform, and then the legislature approving a ballot initiative to go on the November ballot regarding property tax reform, I had asked Mr. Oscar Anderson to come from the Southern Group, and hot off the presses, he's going to give us a rendition of what happened over the last couple weeks. Then followed by that, we'll have our property appraiser, Mr. David Johnson, who has been working tirelessly with our team on the impacts of what the property tax reform would look like. And remember, if this does go into effect, it does not affect the budget that we're reviewing now, that we're going to, that we have to adopt in September to be implemented in October. However, it's there's a plan, a strategy moving forward I'd like to discuss with the board. Following Mr. Johnson, Mr. Jex, our budget director, will come to give a countywide budget overview. At that point, Madam Chairman, we'll bring it back to the board and for you all to, if there's any questions, concerns that we would like to discuss at that point. And then we'll turn it over to our constitutionals. We have all of our constitutionals here this morning. Sheriff Lima is here with the Sheriff's Office. We have J.R. Kroll with our tax collector, and then we'll round out this morning with Amy Pinnock, our Supervisor of Elections. This afternoon will be our court discussion, but first we'll lead off with the Department of Health with Dr. Johnson. Then we'll go to our State Attorney, Guardian Ad Litem, Public Defender, and then Mr. Malloy will come with the Clerk of Court and the Comptroller's budget, and then we will finish this afternoon with links discussion. Ms. Hawkins will be here for that discussion. Tomorrow we'll open up, all the constitutionals again will be done today, and then tomorrow we'll open up to our internal departments. So in the morning we'll have all of our operating departments from emergency management, fire, utilities, environmental services. Chief Judge Chase was supposed to be here today. She has a court issue, so she will actually be here tomorrow at 11. So wherever we are in the frame, I told her that, and I know, Chairman, she spoke with you too, that we'll accommodate her tomorrow morning. And then we'll round out tomorrow morning with our fleet department facilities, our information technology. We call in our public works, we're calling it Moving Seminole. There's a lot of great information that Ms. O'Lory will be talking about with us tomorrow morning. Our Seminole Moments and strategic planning. You know, Seminole Moments is our efficiency measures that we have doing. This is our second year. We have some great information to share with the board. And then we'll round out tomorrow morning with the countywide department budget review. And then we'll just end with some closing comments tomorrow. Hopefully by 1, latest by 2, we can be out of here. And then or any other follow-up items that the board wants us from today or in the morning, we can bring it back tomorrow afternoon for the board. So with that, good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, and everyone who joined us today. As we continue this year's budget work sessions, I want to thank our constitutional officers, our department directors, budget office staff, and employees across the organization for the work in developing our proposed fiscal year 27 budget. Last year, the board made difficult decisions to address the rising costs, growing service demands, and long-term financial challenges. The fiscal year 27 budget continues that work by focusing on essential services, operational efficiencies, and responsible financial planning. The proposed budget totals approximately $1.3 billion across all county operations and reflects a balanced approach to meeting the needs of the growing community while maintaining the county's strong financial position. This budget includes no new staffing requests, and for the second consecutive year results in a net reduction in full-time positions. At the same time, it continues to support the services our residents and businesses rely on every day. Public safety remains our highest priority, while investments in transportation, emergency management, parks, libraries, and infrastructure help maintain the quality of life that makes Seminole County a great place to live, work, and do business. I have 3 themes to go over with you this morning. The first theme you'll see throughout this proposed budget is our continued commitment to maintaining essential services. As you all know, nearly 3/4 of the county's operating and capital budget supports public safety, transportation, utilities, and solid waste services. These are core services residents depend on every day, and this budget ensures we can continue delivering them at a high level. The second theme is operational efficiency. Through our Seminole Moments, which is our efficiency program, departments across the organizations have identified over 50 operational improvement projects projected to save approximately $60 million over the next 5 years. These initiatives focus on improving processes, leveraging technology, strengthening partnerships, and finding smarter ways to deliver services without reducing service levels. They represent our ongoing commitment to responsible stewardship of taxpayer resources. And the last and the third theme is investing in our future. This budget reflects the confidence voters placed in us through the approval of the fourth-generation infrastructure sales tax. The fiscal year 27 marks the first full year of collections, providing an important funding source for transportation improvements, public safety infrastructure, and other long-term capital needs throughout Seminole County. Overall, the proposed fiscal year 27 budget maintains our focus on delivering essential services, investing in critical infrastructure, preserving our long-term financial stability, and preparing for the future needs of a growing community. So before we move into our fiscal year 27 budget presentations, we will begin with a legislative update on property tax reform. While the proposal currently is under consideration, would not impact the budget before you today, it has the potential to significantly affect local government revenues beginning in fiscal year 28 and beyond. And with that, Madam Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, and I believe we have Mr. Oscar Anderson taking the microphone, and he will bring us all things of wisdom from Tallahassee.
There's wisdom in Tallahassee?
Good luck.
Asking for a friend.
Oxymoron.
Is that a thing?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Chairman, commissioners. Always great to see you. Glad to be back from Tallahassee after special session after special session. I know you've gotten lots of information about what was in the proposed property tax amendment that was passed by the legislature, but I put a little cheat sheet down that shows you what's in the current law and what the changes are. Do I need to get closer?
Or move it forward.
Sorry. So you have it. I don't know if, Madam Chair, if you want me to go through it or not, or I don't know what you want to spend, or you want to talk more color commentary. That's up to you. So.
I actually think the facts would be welcome.
Okay, sure, happy to. And you correct me if I'm wrong. That's why I'm glad you're here, because, yeah, I'm not
The
a...
facts as you know them today.
Yeah, well, that's true. It always changes.
This is a moving target, quite honestly.
Okay, so as you know, the legislature, so the governor rolled out his proposal, was pretty far-reaching, obviously. The legislature made a few changes to it. So I'm going to talk about the final product that incorporates the changes the legislature made. The first one on here is the homestead exemption related to the school taxes. They were removed. They were in the original governor's proposal, but the legislature took them out. So that increase in homestead exemption does not apply to the school millage rate. For counties, cities, and special districts, it increases to $150 in January 1st, 2027, and then to $250 in 2028. And then after that, there is a inflation adjustment that's in place for non-school homestead exemptions. There is they have created sort of two classes of residents, for lack of a better description. The existing homeowners are eligible for the increased homestead exemption right away. Anybody that shows up after this thing is implemented has to be here for 5 years before it applies to them, which is going to be challenging, I assume, for him to try to implement.
We'll see if that holds up in the court system also.
Yeah.
There's a good
Equal protection.
I think that's equal protection clause,
uniformity of
absolutely.
taxation, got a problem there. It does give the counties some ability to shorten. It authorizes and gives you the ability to shorten that 5-year period if you want to down the road. I'm not exactly sure why they put that in there, but I guess they wanted to give some flexibility to the local governments. They changed the cap on non-homesteaded property, which was at 10% annually, to 5% starting January 1st, 2027. That's commercial, rental, anything non-homestead that applies to. And then the other thing they did was they put some constitutional restrictions on the use of that, of what they called essential core services. And that included public safety, public education, transportation, stormwater and flood control, natural resource protection projects, bond and debt service payments, and pension obligations. Those are not, you're going to have a lot of questions about what that means. It's a great question. I don't know. I assume that's a decision the courts will have to resolve at some point of what's included in transportation infrastructure. The legislature did add paragraph G, which I can print it out. I can read it to you. I've got lots of paper here because it was an important piece for the counties and cities specifically. And it was paragraph G. It says one of the other new core essential services they added was to fund the operations and administration of county officers and commissioners established under Article 8 and municipalities, and the expenditures approved by such county officers or county or municipal governing bodies except those expenditures prohibited by law. There was a lot of back and forth on the floor about what that meant. It was originally assumed it was put in there to deal with constitutional officers, like who's going to pay for elections. It was a big debate at the beginning. But it goes further than that, and from the colloquy on the floor, it was clear that that's basically anything you approve that's not prohibited by law is now considered an essential core service. So everything in your budget that you vote on would now be an eligible use. Revenue reduction aside, from the expenditure side, you'd be allowed to use ad valorem taxes for that. Let's see, what else did they also gave some constitutional direction to the legislature to figure out a way to continue to try to get to full repeal put a mechanism in place where counties are allowed to try to reduce or increase the homestead exemption to 100%. It doesn't say that you have to. And it doesn't say the legislature has to, it just authorizes the legislature to put a system in place. So there will be a lot of discussion around that down the road if this passes, I'm sure, as well. And then, obviously, the effective date is January 1st, 2027, assuming it passes. There were a couple other pieces that I think are relevant for y'all to know. When it started in the governor's proposal, there were a couple things that the legislature took out. One was there was funding for the Department of Revenue to create a website, which you guys may have seen, the Save Our Homes website. I think that was through the Department of Revenue. We're trying to figure that out. And there was $5 million worth of funding in the bill to pay for that. They took that out of the bill. They said you can't do that. The governor can do it, obviously, if he wants to right now, so we don't need to fund it or pay for it. It's up to him if he wants to do that, was the back and forth on that. The other thing that the governor's proposal had that was taken out was a trust fund that was sort of described as a way to backfill some of the loss of revenue by the locals. There was a point of big debate in the committee and on the floor, and the legislature's opinion was if the people vote to increase homestead and exemption that much and reduce the overall millage or overall revenue to these local governments, then we'll have to figure out a way to make it work. And we're not going to be in the business of backfilling. There was a lot of back and forth between Republican and Democratic members. Republican members typically get more local projects approved than Democrats do, and it's not fair to our communities, and so they just took it out completely. So there is no trust fund to backfill any loss of revenue. So that's sort of an overview of what happened. So you want to talk about that, and then I can talk a little about next steps. Who has questions that I'll attempt to answer and rely on him to clarify?
Commissioners, any questions?
Wow, that's great.
I think the summary is that they've broadened the uses, assuming we have the revenue.
Yes.
Do we have it?
That's correct.
All right,
That's
back
correct.
to you, Oscar.
Okay. Next step. So there's already, I've been in constant contact with the Association of Counties and the League too, actually. There's already a website created called SaveOurVoters.com that everybody kind of believes is going to be the mechanism for the legal challenge around it. There's actually some great interviews and information on that website about it. As Mr. Johnson said earlier, there are some serious, I'm going to say serious, there are some deficiencies that probably are going to be legally challenged in the ballot language. Even the title itself, Save Our Homes from Excessive Property Taxes, doesn't feel that neutral, which is what ballot language is supposed to be. And there's a lot of other things in there. It talks about the benefits, doesn't talk about the costs. There's lots of ambiguous language in there. And then to the last issue, it does sort of create two classes of residents, and under the uniformity of taxation, is that a legal thing to do? It's way above my pay grade, but there's clearly going to be a legal challenge to it. That process is outlined in statute in Chapter 101, and essentially what it does is somebody challenges the courts. The courts have, I think, 30 days at that point. They have 30 days once it's filed with the Secretary of State to challenge. The courts have to obviously move it to the top of the docket. If a court says the ballot language has deficiencies that need to be cured, then the Attorney General gets 10 days to rewrite the ballot language. And then that new improved language can then again be challenged. I don't know when that stops. I don't know when the end of that process is. I fully expect, I presume there's going to be some changes to the language based on sort of just plain reading of it, but you never know. So that process is going to work itself out. Obviously, the Association of Counties, this will be the #1 topic during the annual conference in a few weeks on the 24th to 26th. I'll be down there as well. And so they're obviously trying to figure out what they can and can't do. I don't expect the association to be a party to any lawsuit that moves forward. They got to get board approval, and there's a whole process, and this has to happen pretty quick. So, and same with the league, but I assume individual local governments will join that conversation. That's sort of next steps. The polling I've seen, to add some color commentary, is about 70%. The original rumor around the Capitol was that the governor's office was going to wait as long as possible because they know that every day that it sits out there, it loses support. And then it kind of rushed out at the end of special session when he had some more, I'm going to say leverage over because of vetoes and everything else. So he did it before the budget had been approved to sort of maximize his abilities. So that's the color commentary and next steps. Questions?
Questions? Commissioner Zimbow?
Not so much a question, but thank you very much. I know you all were very busy up there, and
I'm glad to be home.
yeah, I bet you are. As we endeavor upon today's task of this budget, and I know my fellow commissioners are aware of this, but for the public, this is on our radar. Staff is going to be, at some point, bringing recommendations back to us as we move for next cycle's budget. But I would remind everyone, these type initiatives were on the ballot in 2018 and 2022, of which were not approved by the citizens of this state to increase that homestead exemption. So this is not a novel idea. But I do applaud the legislature for giving the citizens the availability and the capability to weigh in on this and make their own decisions on how they want to be taxed. It's our job to ensure that they're fully informed before they walk into that ballot box to understand what this ultimately means for them in the way of quality of life. And I trust that our people and our staff will endeavor upon doing such a good job that we'll be able to inform our constituents what this really means when they go in that polling place to decide which way they want to be taxed. So to me, this represents, obviously, the core values of our country and the way this country was founded, to give the citizens that ability. And I think what we will find, at least the citizens of Seminole County, if properly informed and educated on what these impacts will be, have always proven to us to make good decisions.
I would just point out that this is a statewide vote.
Yes.
And so we are a very small portion of that. The task in front of us is fairly significant. I think, any further comments? If not, I
may, but I'd like to hear the rest of the story.
Can I add one? There was a second bill that was passed, an implementing bill. This was all about the House joint and the joint resolution they both passed. The implementing bill deals with stuff that he can explain about rollback rates and things, and then also gave them the ability to go beyond the 75-word limit that's in the Constitution, or in the statute, I guess, for ballot language. So that passed as well. Sorry, I just wanted to be complete in my presentation.
Thank you, Oscar. So
Sure.
stand by. We'll hear from Mr. Johnson now.
Very good. So we're going to kind of dovetail into what Oscar is there, and I've got a little bit of graphics. You know, me and a PowerPoint, I cannot go any place without a PowerPoint. So here we go to graphically represent a lot of what Oscar just indicated. So here's a current snapshot of your tax roll and what it looks like for 2026 and kind of moving forward. So 2026, breaking news, you probably already know this, your tax roll has now grown to about $20.3 billion in taxable value. Of that, about $24.5 billion is attributable to homesteaded property, so that gets back to the conversation we just had, which is about 40%. You've got about 181,000 parcels, 107,000 of those have a homestead. And what this does from a estimated perspective of what you would be generating for tax revenue, about $444 million. I did not take Tim's 96% math that he did, but this is just a quick overview. You generate about $444 million in ad valorem tax revenue to your general fund. About $185 million of that, through all your funds, I'm sorry, about $185 million of that is paid by homestead property owners, about 41%. As Oscar pointed out, this impact, if this does get passed by voters in November, will not be affecting the budget we're supposed to be talking about today. Okay, I understand it's on our radar and we need to be conscious of it, but it does not impact anything we're going to be doing for the fiscal year 27. All right, Tim. So this is just kind of an outline about what this happens in the time frame. Currently, the homestead exemption is about $51,411. That is already factored up by the CPI, so that's why it's a weird number. If this were to pass, it goes to 150 on January 1st, 2027, and to 250 on January the 1st, 2028. And then, as Oscar indicated, there's this nebulous language about, someday maybe we try to get it to nothing. And we're going to give the legislature that authority so we do not have to go back to the voters. They can decide to do it or not do it. It's just there and gives them some authority to do that. So that's what that looks like. As Oscar indicated, this does not impact school taxes. The one thing that folks have got to understand, the bumper sticker that's out there that, you're not going to pay property taxes on your homestead is just false, because you're going to continue to pay property taxes for school taxes. So everybody that has a homestead, whether this passes or doesn't pass, is still going to get a tax bill from the tax collector with the school tax on there. So that's about 40% here in Seminole County. So that's fair disclosure on that. All right, so here's how this HJR 1F impacts your three funds that you control, assuming this were to pass. And you can see the numbers. For 2027, you would be seeing an initial, when the 150 kicked in, you would see about a $50 million reduction in your general fund revenue, about a $19 million reduction in your fire fund, and about $600,000 in your road fund. And it stays, about 15 to 17%, even though homestead makes up a larger percentage. Who's paying the bill? Those non-homesteaded property owners continue to pay the bill to this day. But the impact is real, for sure. If we get to 2028, 2029, that number now grows to almost $85 million out of your general fund, almost 26%, $32 million out of your fire fund, and about $1 million out of your road fund. Again, fair disclosure, true transparency. We did not indicate any kind of growth in your tax roll going forward from 26 to 27 to 28. We all know that your tax roll grows at 4, 5, 6% a year. So this is worst case scenario, but this is just math that, it's bad either way. It's just math to give you an indication rather than doing some kind of, mathematic calisthenics. So we'll deal with that if we need to, if this passes. But bottom line, across your three funds, about $188 million worth of reduction in your revenues across the three funds. So I call this my Back to the Future slide, because this is what we're doing. If this were to pass, essentially what happens is, again, currently you've got about $60.3 billion taxable value tax roll. If this were to pass, the first year we basically take you back to 2023, so you erase any kind of growth that you've had in your tax roll in 23, 24, 25, or 26 with the $150,000 homestead applied. We go all the way back to 2022, okay? When the second part of that kicks in at 250. Remember that 1 mil basically generates about $60 million in this upcoming budget that we're talking about. Put it another way, 1 mil would generate about $45 million if this were to pass. So that's where those numbers impact you. Oscar touched on it. But I'm going to elaborate a little bit more, and this gets way, way in the weeds. One of the things in the implementing bill that is not affected is your rollback rate. I mean, we always talk about there's two parts to this tax bill. We always are hyper-focused on the value and the assessments and exemptions and all that stuff, because that's, I guess, sexier. But there's another piece of that equation. The rate, the tax rate, gets multiplied against that value. Nothing so far affects that rollback rate. So what will happen is, if in fact this passes by the voters in November, it will no longer be called a rollback rate, because the rollback rate by definition in the statutes is the rate necessary to generate the same revenue as the year before, less any kind of new construction. You will essentially have a roll-up rate, okay? So the tax rate will actually be advertised when you have all your public hearings as a tax increase on those non-homesteaded property owners, because the rate necessary to generate the same dollars as the year before will have to go up, because we have taken 19 or $15 billion worth of taxable value off. So that's the piece of the story that, again, educated voters will learn over the next number of months. We'll talk about probably ad nauseum, but that's how that particular part of the rollback, which we'll call roll-up rate, works. And with that, I am done. We'll talk about my budget later on, but we're here to answer questions on HJR 1F, and I know Tim's got some ideas also.
So I'm Timothy Jex with the Office of Management and Budget. I'm going to jump forward to slide 24 to cover the revenue impacts of the reform, as well as the county.
Just check, see if your mic is on, if they can check it in the back.
Couldn't hear that.
Sure. I'm Timothy Jex.
I don't think your mic's even active.
Check
It's not
that
on.
for us, please. In our little booth in the back.
Tech support.
Keep testing it, Tim.
Does the one next to you work, maybe?
Yeah, just hand him that one.
I'll move those.
No, come over here.
The shift.
I'm Timothy Jex with the Office of Management and Budget.
No, it's Tim's.
It's Tim's.
We can hear Commissioner Constantine.
Back there.
No, this one here.
It's that one.
So the total proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year 26-27 is $1,284 million for all countywide funds and departments. This is an increase of 5% over the current FY26 adopted budget. County revenues are allocated into different funding buckets in order to maintain accountability, legal compliance, and fiscal management. Property taxes are the primary source of revenues for the general fund, shown in orange, as well as the fire fund and transportation trust funds in green. Our enterprise funds in blue account for 18% of the county's revenues. These are considered business activities. The revenues in these funds are dedicated to provide drinking water to our customers, treat wastewater, and manage the county's landfill. 5% of our revenues fund the county's internal service self-insurance funds, shown in purple. These are workers' compensation, property liability, and health insurance activities. And finally, 37% of our revenues are generated from legally restricted special revenue sources, including state and federal grants, interlocal agreements, and tourism revenues. Now we're going to focus on the three funds that are supported by property taxes. First, the general fund, where ad valorem revenues make up 77% of the proposed budget. This is based on the total countywide taxable value of $60 billion as reported by the property appraiser. The proposed millage rate is 5.3751 mils. This is the same as the current fiscal 26 rate. After prepayment discounts, we expect to receive 96% of collection estimates. The proposed budget revenue for this source is $311.3 million, which is an increase of $15.3 million over the current year. The next largest revenue in the general fund are sales taxes generated from the state of Florida's 6% tax levy. This is a separate revenue from the county's 1 cent infrastructure sales tax. These taxes are collected by the state of Florida and allocated to the county through the half-cent and state revenue sharing programs. Seminole is a donor county, which means that a portion of our taxes are paid by the residents and shared with fiscally constrained counties in the state. We are projecting this revenue flat at $41.5 million. This makes up 10% of our general fund. Next, we have our public service tax, which is a 10% levy on electricity, water, natural gas, and propane sold in the unincorporated area of the county. The cities maintain their own levies and receive their revenues directly. The first 300 kilowatt hours of electricity is exempt from this tax. We're projecting $25.4 million in the proposed budget, an increase of $5.3 million. This revenue makes up 6% of the general fund. The final major revenue in the general fund is communication service taxes. This is a 5.1% tax on mobile, data, cable, and streaming service. It's controlled and administered by the state of Florida. These figures represent revenues collected in the unincorporated area. The cities receive their revenues directly, and this makes up 1.3% of the general fund. This chart shows the total revenues in the general fund from all sources of $403.7 million, which is an increase of 5% over 26. Now we'll move to general fund expenditures. This chart shows the total proposed expenditures of $400.9 million. We added the final column on the right to show the percentage of the total fund, which is a representation of where your tax dollars are allocated. 55% of the general fund proposed budget is allocated for public safety. The first line includes sheriff, law enforcement, as well as the county's correctional facility. The sheriff proposed budget is increasing 3.8% to $202.6 million. Other public safety functions in the general fund include 911 dispatch, public safety radio network, emergency management, animal services, and code enforcement. We will go over these budgets in more detail during upcoming department presentations. 8.4% of the general fund revenues are dedicated to transportation services, including mass transit, which is Sunrail, Lynx buses, and Scout on-demand transit. The second line is a transfer from our general fund to support the county's Public Works Department, who manage our roads, bridges, and traffic control system. The proposed recreation budget for fiscal '27 is $28.8 million, which makes up 7% of our general fund. This budget is split almost evenly across county parks, libraries, and natural lands and trails. The proposed budget includes $6.5 million for human services, including community assistance, community health, and a transfer to the Attainable Housing Trust Fund. This chart does not include grant revenues, which are budgeted outside of the general fund, or unfunded mandates, which will be shown on an upcoming slide. The proposed budget includes $67.8 million for general government services. This includes $32.5 million for transfers to our constitutional officers, the tax collector, property appraiser, clerk of court, and supervisor of elections. County administration costs the general fund $12.3 million. This includes the board's budget, county manager's office, county attorney, the budget office, human resources, and our technology department. $16.9 million is allocated for the fleet and facilities department to manage the county's 300 buildings, 2.4 million square feet, and 1,400 vehicles. Then we have $2.1 million for economic development and tourism activities, and $4 million for the development services department, which includes planning and growth management. Final chart shows county unfunded mandates in the general fund. This includes our annual payment to the state for the local cost share of Medicaid. We have $1.9 million for the medical examiner, $1.2 million for the health department, $21.7 million in support of the courts, $500,000 for veteran support, $6.9 million for retirement contribution rates set by the state, and $3.1 million for water quality protection services. These unfunded mandates are defined by the Florida Association of Counties and are based on proclamations of law, which require local governments to expend funds in a constitutional or statutorily dictated way. The FY27 total proposed budget includes $158 million for all unfunded mandates across all county funds. This chart shows the total proposed revenues and expenditures in the general fund. We are structurally balanced with a revenue estimate of $403.7 million and expenditures of $400.9 million. Moving to the county's fire fund, this chart shows both proposed revenues and expenditure budgets, which are 100% in support of providing fire and EMS rescue services to the county. Total proposed ad valorem property taxes are $112 million, which is an increase of $5.3 million over fiscal '26. This is based on maintaining the current 2.7649 millage rate, which makes up 86% of the total $130 million fund revenues. Moving to expenditures, we have base budgets of $112.2 million, which is nearly 90% to fund personnel, salaries, and benefits. In our $22 million capital line, we have budgets for fire station renovations and relocations that were presented by our fire chief last month. Moving to the Transportation Trust Fund, the final ad valorem fund, these revenues support operational costs for transportation in the county. This does not include our penny tax revenue, which funds transportation infrastructure. The proposed budget includes a $33.6 million transfer from the general fund needed to support expenditures. The county levies an unincorporated road millage of 0.1107 mils, which generates $3.1 million in ad valorem dedicated to road maintenance. Moving down to gas taxes, there's a combined 15 cents per gallon levied in the county, which is projected to generate $21 million. We have a 6-cent local option and the new 5-cent local option gas tax, which are projected to generate a combined $12.8 million. The next row shows contributions from the city of Sanford and Lake Mary from their 5-cent collections. This revenue will go towards the cost of the new 417 Seminole Connector roadway. Moving down, we have a 1 cent per gallon levy dedicated towards mass transit, and the last two rows show a combined 3 cents per gallon that is set and administered by the state of Florida. Total revenues in the Transportation Trust Fund are estimated at $60 million, including the general fund transfer. This chart This chart shows the proposed expenditure budgets in the fund. The transfer to Lynx is projected to grow by $100,000. This includes a reduction for fixed route buses of $2.4 million and an increase in paratransit cost of $2.5 million. The reduction in fixed route is due to a service change which took place on January 2026 to replace fixed route buses with an on-demand microtransit service. The current FY26 budget includes overlapping services which are going away in fiscal '27. Note that the service change resulted in a reduction to Lynx of 82,000 service hours, which would have cost the county an additional $9 million in fiscal '27. The proposed budget for microtransit is $7.1 million, which will fund 49 vehicles, an increase of 7 vehicles from fiscal '26. Moving down to the contribution for Sunrail, we have a reduction from $11,560,000 to $11,349,000. And finally, the cost of our Public Works Road and Bridge Department is $28.5 million, which is a $2.4 million reduction, including the 5 full-time personnel which are being reduced through attrition. This chart combines all 3 ad valorem funds to show where your property tax dollars are allocated. Combined 72% go towards public safety activities, including law enforcement, corrections, fire, EMS, and dispatch. 11% goes to fund transportation. 5% for county parks, libraries, and natural lands. 4% is for BCC general government activities. 3% funds our constitutional officers, and 1% goes to community services, with the final 4% allocated to unfunded state mandates. This chart shows the potential revenue impact of the property tax reform to our 3 ad valorem funds. The first line shows the proposed ad valorem property tax revenues for each fund, with the 96% discount totaling $426 million. The next 2 lines show the estimated impact of the additional $150,000 and then $250,000 exemptions. If we look at the $250,000 exemption, which will impact the FY29 revenues and beyond, the property appraiser estimates an $85 million reduction in the general fund, $33 million reduction in the fire fund, and $1 million reduction in transportation trust fund. This is approximately 26% of our total ad valorem revenues. Moving to the last row, we show the total impact to the total projected revenues for each fund in fiscal '29, resulting in approximately $20 million reduction in the combined revenues for all 3 funds. This slide is being presented for reference purposes. The top subtotal shows the services excluding mandates. FY27 budgets total $358 million in our general fund. The '29 revenue reduction represents 24% of services. In the general fund. In the fire fund, the $33 million loss represents 23% of services. And my final chart shows the FY26 current approved full-time staffing positions of 1,685 being reduced by 5 to 1,680 in the proposed budget.
And that's it. Back to you, Madam Chairman.
Well, first of all, thank you, all 3 of you, for your presentations. Before we go into board discussion, I do have a few comments. Just when we thought we had it all figured out, the universe shifts. And while we have the reality of what we think we know today, there are so many unknowns that we're faced with. And I think Chairman Zembauer, or Chairman,
Past Chairman.
still occasionally acts like the Chairman Zembauer.
Well,
I'll just own
sometimes.
that. I'll own the Freudian slip. As he mentioned earlier, I think we have a lot of things to contemplate and consider, and one of them is anything that we do this year does impact next year. And so while we can openly say that this year's budget is not impacted by this potential new law, we certainly need to be thinking about the future as we're preparing this year's budget. It is very clear that the proposal under consideration by the voters is significant in nature and is more than likely going to be rather difficult to understand given the language and given just the nature of elections. We all have daily lives that we live, and other than being involved in politics, most normal citizens are not that engaged because they can't be. And yes, I did just call us abnormal because we are. And quite frankly, there will be factions, I won't say opposing factions, but factions with regard to this potential law that are stating it as the best thing since sliced bread and are stating it as though the sky is falling. And neither of those are probably true. In reality, somewhere in the middle is the truth. So I think for today's board discussion, what I hope that we will do as the reasonable and responsible adults in the room is make sure that we understand the facts, that we're asking all the right questions, that we're evaluating potential impacts for future budgets because they matter now, and that we are preparing for that range of possible outcomes. I think we owe it to our citizens to make sure that this discussion informs them well, for those that are paying attention. So I also think it's important to keep everything in context. There is no right answer. I always say this. There are probably 1,000 right answers out there. Just because it's our idea doesn't mean it is the right answer. There is no such thing on any topic. We do have 2 days' worth of discussion, so I will ask that we are all reasonable and responsible about the rabbit holes that we go down for potentially very small dollars that don't have significant impacts. That is not in my speaking notes, to be clear. Darren's probably flinching, but we do tend to do that every now and then, and it takes the focus away from the bigger issues. We will have another opportunity to discuss the proposed property tax reform in greater depth at our July 14th meeting. So we will celebrate 250 years of great governance in the United States of America, and happy birthday, and then we will come back to a July 14th discussion about what potentially is happening next. So let's focus on 2027 with an eye to the future and the reality that it will be seemingly difficult from my perspective to expect that our voters are going to say, why no, I don't want a tax break. Although they have done it 2 times before, the public relations campaign around this is much different than it was in the past. And we just need to be cognizant of that and prepare for the future. The property tax reform, from my perspective, is a fiscal issue. I realize that it's not turned into. It is also a political issue. I believe if we keep it attached to the numbers and attached to the reality of what that pays for our citizens today, that we will do our job in terms of informing them. I also think there's a presumption of guilt, and that is that to sweep 67 counties with the same brush is the presumption of guilt that we are all overspending. And I will tell you that I believe there are a lot of counties that are fiscally restricted. I think there are some of us that are donor counties, and I think there are others that do overspend. I don't think we are one of them, which means, from my perspective, that this will have a more significant impact on the counties that were already fiscally responsible, because there are less areas to cut. And that's just the reality of it. So that will be for future discussions, but that is the reality that our citizens will face if this passes. So let's keep everything fact-based. Let's stay to the numbers. We all know I love the numbers. Round them when possible, Mr. Jex. That would be awesome. And keep us focused. So let's work toward a really good outcome. So, Commissioners, I'll turn it over to you for any questions for the 3 gentlemen who have done a wonderful job at explaining the potential future and the reality of today. Yes, Commissioner Lockhart.
I'm hoping that one of you can help explain to me and to any other folks who have identified this. I'm hearing 2 different narratives about non-homesteaded properties and what the impact to those will be, particularly around residential non-homesteaded properties that have renters in them and the potential impact to renters in the community. When I see the cap or the limit being taken down from the 10% assessment annual growth down to the 5%, when I've talked to commercial property owners in the community, they love that. That looks really good to them. How could this not be fantastic? Can you explain how both statements can be true at the same time, or are they?
Absolutely. And I will tell you, the major impact is the increasing of the homestead exemption from the 50 to 250. That is where 90% of the impact occurs. To your point, taking the cap on non-homesteaded properties, those commercial property owners, from 10 to 5 affects that number, that 180-something million dollar number, by about $3 or $4 million. So it's a relatively small piece of the impact, certainly from a property owner, property landlord's perspective. Predictability is always very important when you're trying to come up with fairly tight margins sometimes, especially in this market that's relatively flat on the commercial side. So certainly anything that you can do to shave off an expense, and certainly property taxes, insurance are certainly an expense of owning a piece of property. That predictability is very much there. But I will tell you that is the least of the impact from this proposal. And certainly, it creates some level of fairness moving forward. Every year I give you an idea about how much we have under the cap from the Saver Homes cap, which is 8 or 9 times the size of what we call the 10% cap, which is what they are. Just because commercial properties do not grow, or non-homesteaded properties do not pierce that bubble of more than 10% a year anyway. So 5% is a relatively stable amount of growth. And again, it's not going to be a huge impact as far as the total dollars coming into the county. That's the least of the equation.
So follow up, if I could. So how do we predict this negatively impacting renters, or does it? So
there's commentary around the concept that if this does go into effect, you will maybe see an increase in demand for housing in Florida, and that's one issue. So that could raise total prices a little bit. That's one particular impact. The other piece I touched on, which is, let's call it a tax shift potentially. If you have a roll-up rate rather than a roll-back rate, and you change your general fund millage rate, or your fire fund millage rate, or your road fund millage rate to something higher, to maybe not account for all of the loss, but some of it, those folks that don't have a homestead exemption are going to pay that. That millage is going to be increasing. So yes, their cap went from 10 to 5, but the other part of that equation, the rate that we're multiplying that by, has now gone up potentially. So that's where it could negatively impact not only renters, but I would think your business owners. Again, I just had a 2-minute speech about predictability. That's an expense. They love that, knowing what the predictability is. But if their millage rate goes from a 5.37 mils to 6 or 7, then the homesteaded folks are happy, because they're not going to really see that, but the non-homesteaded people are. So that's where the shift could be.
Thank you for that explanation.
Commissioners, any further comments?
Madam Chair, I just want to, let's go beyond that, David. Fact of the matter is, in this scenario, we're cutting taxes. I mean, there was less money. Services will be affected. Property values, therefore, will go down.
Potentially. It depends on what demand is. It's all going to be depending on what the demand is.
But it would, demand will go down, and then the interest, people will raise rent because they're going to be taxed more because they're going to have things. So it's going to make it less affordable, and property values will likely go down.
It's predictable. It's unpredictable at this point. I think the narrative I've heard more is that this is going to increase demand. This is why that 5-year piece was put into this particular amendment, that you had to be a resident of Florida for 5 years before you could get this additional exemption, because there was some level of concern that there would be this huge inflow of folks from across the country buying up properties. We already have a housing crisis in the state. And, again, median sales price in this county is $450,000. Let's round it to $500,000, okay? That's unsustainable, okay? I mean, that's a huge number. It's sustainable. That's a huge number. So does that go from 500 to 600 because you're giving someone an additional exemption? Potentially, but then that creates more affordability issues. But Commissioner Constantine, I totally understand quality of life issues. People live in this county for the quality of life, and they have a certain expectation. They have voted themselves tax increases 4 times to create an additional quality of life, to tax themselves to increase their quality of life issues. So certainly that's there. As Chairman Herr pointed out, this is a statewide initiative. So we can be doing everything perfectly great here in Seminole County. There's 24 million other folks in the state that are going to get, potentially to have a comment on this. So that's just kind of where we are with that.
So I think that the conversation around increasing demand for housing in the state of Florida is a very interesting one, and one that I had not heard before. And I will say that it seems to me that that is the last thing we need. Let's just call that like it is. I mean, that's driving a lot of the investment that we have to make today so that people, and we've self-governed in terms of the penny tax, so that we can get from one end of a boulevard to the other. Insert name here, because it's all the boulevards in the county. And we're not the only place in the state that's suffering from that. And I think if you ask both sides of the aisle what the major issue is, it's housing and the affordability of housing, and it's crowding and the issue that we are having to build more and more and more. So that is a really good point, David, that you made, and one that I honestly had not contemplated. Commissioner Lockhart.
Yeah, well, I think affordability is what started this whole conversation,
Exactly.
right? And so when we look at property taxes being one component of the affordability piece of ownership, we are ignoring the insurance piece. And I will tell you, I have a few seniors in my life that I'm very well aware of what's happening with their property taxes, and we went online together and we looked at the calculator, and right now, because the home was purchased many years ago, because they have senior exemptions and what have you, property taxes every year are in the $800 to $1,000 a year range. I don't know that you can join the Y anymore for $800 a year. But just got a notification from their property insurer that their property insurance is going up $1,000 this next year. So we seem to be squeezing one end of the balloon with the water in it, and it's just, I'm concerned that there has been a lack of long-term focus on what will happen to a senior who has been living on a fixed income and could reliably count on, I know my property taxes are about $1,000 a year. That now what is going to happen? The disproportionate cost share of other things that may have to occur in order to make up those revenues, we could be seeing a very negative impact on our seniors and low-income residents. And I think it's just very concerning. And so as we talk about this budget and the budget moving forward, especially some of the items that we have, like community paramedicine and all of these things that are focused on reducing costs for Seminole County, reducing costs on Seminole County taxpayers, serving our veterans, that improve the quality of life for everyone in this community, those are all a part of the conversation that we're going to have to be having. And so I am so glad that I work with a board and a staff who understands the big picture, and that we'll be able to see clearly moving forward, hopefully, the best next steps.
David.
Commissioner Lockhart, can we talk about the calculator for a second? So the calculator that's currently out there is wrong, okay? Because it still does include the removal of school taxes, which Oscar talked about in the very beginning, that got taken out in the very beginning of this process. I know they've been made aware of that, but that calculator that's currently out there, because if you punch in your street address and you're assessed at less than $250,000 or taxable value is less than $250,000, it shows zero. Well, that's just not right, because as I indicated, you're going to have to add in there the school taxes, okay? And remember, on the school exemption, gets really complicated, and we're going to go down a rabbit hole just for a second, Chairman Herr. It's not a $150,000 or even a $50,000 homestead. Your school homestead exemption is $25,000, okay? There is no 10% cap on the school portion of the value. If the value goes up 20%, it goes up 20%. That's almost half of your bill. So to have out there in the public domain, okay, that says, I'm going to punch in my address, shows my taxable value is $250, it shows zero, that's just not right. It's not wrong. It's just totally inappropriate. That was what was the governor's initial ideas. That assumes all of his ideas were incorporated into that calculator. The calculator is still up. We checked it out this morning. And so, I don't know how you take it down, if it's in the basement of the governor's mansion or what. But anyway, it's just not there. It's not right. So, because it needs to add back in the school taxes to be at least a little bit legitimate.
Good to know.
And I'll just say that while that went down a little bit of a rabbit hole on school taxes, this is at least one commissioner that says, please educate the kids of the state of Florida so that they can grow up, get good jobs, and pay Social Security for the rest of us that are going to rely on it. So let's not cut school taxes short. Commissioner Delary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. David, Oscar, can you also expound a little bit? Does this new question on the ballot, does it address any guarantees to renters if they rent an apartment complex and the property taxes goes down on the person that owns the complex? Does that get transferred down? I want you to say it. Does it get transferred down to the renter, and/or does that calculator discuss any of that?
Absolutely not. There's no guarantee, there's no contemplation whatsoever of any kind of tax savings from non-homestead property owners, whether commercial, to move back down to a tenant. That would be huge overreach, obviously. But the focus is definitely on homesteaded property owners specifically.
Because there is some confusion relating to that people have actually asked me about, and I don't have an answer for them.
Yeah, the answer is no. It does not guarantee any kind of pass-through back down. It's kind of just like the Live Local Act. There's no guarantee that savings gets moved down to the renters either, so.
Thank you, David.
Commissioners, are we ready to move on?
Please.
All right.
Thank you.
Hearing
all
no
very
further
much.
questions, we'll bring it back to David Johnson as the first up to talk about his specific budget. And we don't let anybody talk without Tim Jack standing next to them, so we've got you covered, David.
Well, this is something a little bit less exciting, and thankfully so. This is our annual budget for funding the office. I always put the slide in there. As you are well aware, my budget and the tax collector's budget are approved by the Department of Revenue on an annual basis. You fund it, obviously, and we certainly want to be here and be courteous and respectful to your comments and your questions. But this just gives you a little bit of an idea of the timeline that we have to follow moving forward. So June 1st, we submit our proposed budget to the Department of Revenue for their approval. They have until July 15th to come up with a tentative approval, and then they send that information back to you as the Board of County Commissioners and say, hey, we're going to tentatively approve the property appraiser's budget. You have until August the 15th to make any additional comments if you so desire. So that's just kind of the time frame we go through with the budget. Here's our assumptions for this year's upcoming budget for the Property Appraiser's Office. We're projecting a 3.28% or $265,000 increase in the budget. These are the assumptions that were built into that. A 4% salary increase, which mirrors what you are doing for your staff and it's in your budget. 7% insurance increase. As you know, we're on your insurance. We fund it ourselves. We pay for it out of our budget, and these are the best estimates that we have at this point, about a 7% increase in those premiums. Obviously, FRS, the Florida Retirement System, rates increase on an annual basis, and we have to follow that in the statutes. And our 48 positions, our FTEs, have remained at 48, they have for a number of years. So you control 3 funds. We've talked about that several times already this morning. You will get a bill for each one of those funds for funding of the office, and generally that's how it looks. 7.1 million, of course, comes out of most of it out of the general fund. Fire fund's just over $1 million, and about $30,000 out of the transportation fund. This is just a transmittal letter to the Department of Revenue. We submitted the budget on the 28th of May. We submit all the budget information, all the schedules, all the audits are on the website. We're trying to be as transparent as we possibly can. So that's certainly there. Anybody that cannot go to sleep at night, this is a great way of helping you go to sleep, looking at the Schedule 3 of capital outlay for the property appraiser's budget. Nothing better than get you to go to sleep with that. And again, these are the categories that we have to report to the Department of Revenue and the schedules that they require. And we never will not take a minute to brag just for a second, because why not? So Seminole County is the 13th largest county in the state by population. We are the 6th, my budget is the 6th lowest out of the 67 counties on a per capita basis. About $16 per person is what it costs to fund the office. The median statewide, this again gets back to we're all painted with, we've got 67 very diverse counties, and we all operate in quite a bit differently in some cases. The median is about $31 statewide. It goes all the way from $10 per capita all the way up to $82. Congratulations to some of my colleagues on that. But you can see how we compare to our neighbors around us very comparatively. So this just gives you a little bit of an idea about what has happened with the taxable value over the years. We'll have to adjust that if HJ1 passes, but the tax roll obviously has increased significantly over the last number of years, while our total employee count has decreased by over 10%. Again, we leverage technology and try to be as innovative as we possibly can to deliver a good quality product at a very efficient rate. And then this kind of gives you an idea about what has happened with your 3 funds over the last number of years. You can see the glide path. The rate of increase over the last number of years is coming down for all of your funds. That is not atypical of what's happening across the county or across the state. A lot of this is a function of, we've talked about demand a minute ago. Certainly demand is there, but because of interest rates, that certainly suppresses that a little bit. And the cost of almost $500,000 median sales price, affordability becomes an issue. So we have certainly seen a trending down in the growth of the tax rolls. I think I've told you this before. If you go back in time over the last 30, 35 years and kind of average out what the county's growth rate has been, we've been about 4%, 4.25%. That's great times and great recessions. So average all that out. So at a 5.5% growth rate, that's still very healthy. That's much higher than inflation, obviously. And certainly that's something that's somewhat sustainable and predictable. Those 10, 11, 12% rate increases are not necessarily the best thing long-term from a growth perspective. And with that, I'm done with the questions I'm ready to take questions about our budget.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Johnson?
I don't have a question. I'll just say thank you again for being so responsive and responsible with the work that you do. It's great to be able to count on you.
It's great working with your folks. Absolutely. Thank you.
David, I think we all appreciate you, the wisdom, the information, the history lessons, and certainly the occasional snark, because it keeps us laughing. we may come back to you with questions at some point as we go through this process.
Absolutely.
I will point out that so this has now been pulled out of my binder as the measurement that we should measure every one of us by. This is a great slide, and I love it. Thank you, David, for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, and I will commit to you, as we always have, we'll continue to work through this. We will deal with whatever we are dealt. We have a great relationship with your folks, and looking forward to continuing working with them. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is Sheriff Lima, who has committed that he can do this in 15 minutes or less.
15.
She's harder than I was. I only gave you 20.
That's the majority of our budget. I think we can give them.
It doesn't matter what we give him. 30 is the number.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Chairman and Commissioners, for the opportunity to present the Seminole County Sheriff's Office proposed budget for fiscal year 2026 to 2027. Joining me, as we usually have, is Chief Lisa Spriggs, Chief of Administrative Services, and Mary Hope, who's the Director of Finance. Both have played a significant role in the development and preparing this budget and will be available with me for questions at the end of our presentation. Before discussing the numbers, I want to just take a moment to express my sincere appreciation for the partnership that we've enjoyed over the years. I've had the privilege of working with a number of county commissions throughout my tenure as sheriff and before, and I've had the opportunity to serve alongside all of you for a significant amount of time. One thing that has remained remarkably consistent is this board's commitment to responsible governance, fiscal discipline, and protecting the quality of life that makes Seminole County such a special place for all of us to call home. The success that we have today did not happen by accident. Seminole County is consistently recognized as one of the safest communities in the entire state and one of the most desirable places to live, work, and raise a family. Those outcomes are the direct result of elected leaders making thoughtful decisions, balancing priorities, and having the courage to make difficult choices whenever necessary. And I know firsthand that budgeting is never easy. Every single department has their needs, every agency has their priorities, yet this board has consistently demonstrated the ability to balance those competing interests while remaining focused on the long-term financial health of this county and the people we serve. I also want to recognize County Manager Darren Gray and his entire team. Over the years, we've built such a tremendous working relationship built on trust, transparency, and collaboration. We meet regularly, communicate often, and work through challenges collectively and together. And that partnership between the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, the County Manager's Office, and the budget and planning staff has allowed us to anticipate challenges rather than simply react to them. In recent months, we've spent a considerable amount of time collaborating and evaluating a variety of fiscal scenarios and planning for potential impacts associated with discussions that are taking place at the state level. And while no one can predict exactly what the future will hold, I am confident that Seminole County is well positioned because we have always approached these issues thoughtfully, collaboratively, and with a focus on long-term sustainability. Pursuant to Chapter 30.49 of the Florida state statutes, I have the responsibility to submit a budget that I certify as reasonable and necessary for the proper and efficient operation of the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. I take that responsibility very seriously. The budget before you today reflects not only our operational needs, but also our commitment to fiscal stewardship, transparency, and accountability to the taxpayers we collectively serve. At its core, the budget today is a maintenance and sustainability budget. The proposed fiscal year 2026-2027 certified budget totals $202.6 million approximately, representing a 3.8% increase over the current fiscal year. This is not an expansion budget. It is designed to preserve operational readiness, maintain competitive compensation, and ensure that we continue delivering the services our residents expect and deserve. Like most public safety organizations, we are a people-driven business. Approximately 85% of our business is personnel-related. Our budget reflects that. The men and women who are answering 911 calls, they are patrolling our neighborhoods, investigating crimes, operating within our correctional facilities, supporting our courts, and providing countless other essential services. That remains our most valuable asset. The majority of this year's increase is associated with personnel costs, benefits, insurance, and the realities of operating in a competitive labor market. These investments are about maintaining staffing levels, preserving experience, and ensuring Seminole County remains an employer of choice within public safety. One area that we continue to monitor very closely involves recent changes to the Florida retirement system. As many of you know, retirement costs represent a significant component of public safety budgets across the state. We are currently evaluating the impact of those legislative changes and working closely with county staff to ensure the appropriate adjustments are reflected moving forward. As part of that hearing process, we will provide updated information and revised projections as necessary. And at the conclusion of our presentation today, we'll talk more specifically about some of those numbers. Like many of the issues we face, this is something that is very much on all of our radar, and I appreciate the partnership of county leadership as we work through those impacts together. I'm particularly proud of the progress we've also made through our in-house law enforcement and corrections academies. Because of the support of this board, we have strengthened our recruitment pipeline, reduced vacancies, and improved our ability to plan for our future. This budget also continues targeted investments in technology that improve operational efficiency and service delivery. These are practical tools that help deputies communicate better, access information faster, and reduce administrative burdens. That all allows our members to spend more time in the field serving our community. We continue to participate in collaborative efforts that address the root causes of crime, including behavioral health partnerships, youth intervention programs, opioid response initiatives, and evidence-based strategies that improve long-term outcomes for our community. Those successes are only possible because of strong partnerships. One example of that partnership is the Advent Health Hope and Healing Center, which has become an important component of our community's response to substance use disorder and behavioral health challenges. While the center is not funded through the Sheriff's Office budget, it has benefited from the continued support of the Florida legislature since its inception, as well as grant funding and opioid settlement resources, including funding distributed from the Florida Department of Children and Families and other partners. The center represents the type of collaboration, multi-agency approach that has helped Seminole County continue to reduce overdoses, poisonings, and the devastating impact associated with substance use and disorders. Throughout the budget development process, we have remained committed to fiscally conservative approach, needs-based. We understand that every single dollar we receive represents the hard-earned tax dollars of Seminole County residents, and we have worked diligently to align resources with operational priorities while maintaining long-term sustainability. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that Floridians will be faced with some important decisions in the months ahead regarding the future of government funding and taxation. Those conversations will ultimately be decided by the voters. As public servants, our responsibility is not only to provide services, but to also ensure that people understand the relationship between the services that they value and the resources required to deliver them. Whatever decision is made, I have tremendous faith in the people that we serve. I have always believed that government works best when it reflects the will of the people. Here in Seminole County, we have a long history of coming together, working through challenges, and finding practical solutions regardless of the issue before us. And I am confident that that spirit will continue moving us forward. Regardless of what decision is ultimately made, the Sheriff's Office will continue working closely with this board, county leadership, and our community to ensure we remain focused on what matters most: protecting our residents, preserving the high quality of life, and maintaining the level of service that our citizens have come to expect and deserve. At the end of the day, This budget reflects responsible stewardship, operational discipline, and a commitment to maintaining the exceptional quality of life that residents enjoy throughout Seminole County. So rather than spending the next several minutes walking through the charts and tables and statistics like we've done in the past, I'd like to take a few moments actually to show you what your investment in public safety looks like in action. The charts, graphs, and supporting documents are indeed available, have already been shared with all the board members and discussed with you as a part of our budget process, and are also available on the Seminole County Sheriff's Office website under fiscal reporting. Those materials are indeed important because they provide a measurements and accountability behind the work that we do. But numbers only tell part of the story. The true impact of this investment is found in the lives that are touched, the partnerships that are built, and the problems that are solved, ultimately the outcomes that we achieve for our community. The video you're about to see highlights the men and women of the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, our community partnerships, and the outcomes that are possible because of the continued support of this board, county leadership, and the taxpayers that we proudly serve. It provides an overview of our organization and showcases both the services our community knows well and many of the efforts that occur behind the scenes. As a modern policing organization, we take pride not only in responding to problems, but in collaborating with others to prevent them before they arise. More importantly, it reflects the values that make Seminole County so incredibly special: service, professionalism, innovation, compassion, and partnership. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you so much again for your leadership, your partnership, and your continued commitment to the people of Seminole County. At this time, we'll show the video and tell the story. The video is 7 minutes, and then we will be prepared to answer any questions at the conclusion of that.
Year in and year out, in times of crisis, our Seminole neighborhood policing deputies run towards the emergency.
Guys, we need to get out. I know it's your house. We got to get out of here.
Our service to citizens is anchored by these three principles: people first, safety and well-being, and community partnership. 24 hours a day, deputies patrol neighborhoods and find solutions for safety issues. After this fatal accident involving a speeding, reckless driver along State Road 46, our deputies initiated saturated speed enforcement and proactive safety messaging in neighboring communities. Our House Watch program alerts deputies to make sure that citizens' homes are secure when they're away for long periods of time. In addition to our significant declines in previous years, in 2025, Seminole County saw an 18.4% decrease in the most serious crimes. Those cases are handled by our Criminal Investigations Division, which includes crimes against children, major crimes, domestic violence and elder services, and Seminole Financial Crimes Task Force. 3 of our digital forensics investigators were recognized by the U.S. Secret Service as among the best in the nation. Our electronics detection canine, Storm, helps locate key evidence hidden in devices like mobile phones and digital storage devices.
Now, do you need police, fire, medical?
When citizens called for help, our communications center handled 182,000 911 calls. Responding deputies employ new Axon AI technology to quickly reference laws and agency policies, translate up to 50 languages.
What did you forget to take?
¿Qué olvidaste llevar?
Axon transcription technology assists with report writing via body-worn cameras. Deputies then finalize the reports before submitting.
It allows them to handle that back end of paperwork and those calls for service with foreign languages much quicker to get back to our core of providing community-centric services to Seminole County.
In more than 5,800 cases, our Victim Services Unit responded to provide follow-up assistance to citizens in need.
Somebody's having the worst day of their life. And when I arrive on scene, I can't change what's already happened. But it isn't hard to be kind and compassionate and take the time to listen, to hear what they're saying.
Our Special Services Division consists of highly trained teams that provide specialized capabilities for critical incidents and complex operations. Our SWAT team deployed on 55 missions. Underwater search and rescue conducted 27 deployments. K-9 units deployed nearly 260 times. Our aviation section, operating 2 alert helicopters, provided critical support on just under 1,400 calls, supporting more than 100 arrests, locating 30 missing persons, even helping extinguish fires from the air. Our Department of School Safety and Security takes a proactive approach to protecting our children. The team includes 96 school resource deputies and police officers and 2 contraband detection canines, providing a safe and secure learning environment. Our team of more than 130 crossing guards man nearly 200 neighborhood posts and perform 11,000 safe crossings to and from school for our children every single day. They serve as safety ambassadors, helping children develop safe habits. We offer innovative services to protect vulnerable residents. For families of autistic children and seniors with dementia, our Scent Jar program provides safe storage of a fresh scent article to track and bring them back as quickly as possible should they wander. Our Lockbox program gives first responders door key access to vulnerable residents who live alone, enabling them to bring help without forcing open doors or windows. Throughout 2025, we took pride in graduating 38 certified deputy sheriffs and 21 detention deputies from our Law Enforcement and Corrections Academy. Our Juvenile Justice Division plays a vital role in youth accountability and intervention. The Prosecution Alternatives for Youth, or PAY program, processed more than 500 cases, giving nonviolent youthful offenders the opportunity for positive long-term outcomes via the Juvenile Alternative Service Program and Teen Court. For adult offenders, our Department of Corrections offers workforce reentry training. Our Apprentice Construction Trades program delivered more than 1,400 hours of hands-on training funded via our Inmate Welfare Fund. Our innovative programs for opioid-dependent men and women helped nearly 200 incarcerated individuals have a better chance to break that cycle of dependency upon release. Thanks to our holistic approach to fighting opioid dependency, countywide in 2025, opioid poisoning and overdose deaths fell 19%. Our 501c3 nonprofit Seminole County Sheriff's Office Community Foundation funds numerous programs through charitable contributions from community partners. Our Shop with the Sheriff program provided 275 children with new clothing and school supplies. The Halloween Safety Spooktacular brought hundreds of children and families trick-or-treating in a safe environment, elaborate trunk-or-treating displays, and free snow cones to top off the fun. Our Christmas Village program brought holiday joy to more than 500 children and their families with gifts from Santa's Toy Shop, fun and games, and of course, a visit from Santa himself. In 2025, our Honor Guard participated in 64 details and ceremonies honoring fallen heroes and families whose courage and sacrifices will never be forgotten.
You know, that video concluded with Deputy Sheriff Robert Moore, who died on this date today in 1975, rescuing inmates from a burning correctional facility. So we honor that. It's just a coincidence that it happened to finish up our video with his photograph and this budget presentation to be occurring on those days. But I think it's our responsibility as a community to never forget our heroes. We've had 6 that were ultimately killed in the line of duty dating back from 1922, 1975, 1977, 1989, 1998, and 2011. So again, it's an important part of it. 18 and a half minutes in, I do want to talk about something that wasn't mentioned by our friends at Southern. When Oscar was giving the report, there was also a first special session that occurred. And the first special session does have a fiscal impact both on our county, both on the sheriff's office side and your side as well. And that is the reinstating of the 1.5% COLA that was eliminated with the legislative efforts in 2011. So if you served in a special risk classification prior to 2011, you earned a 3% COLA per year. The legislature eliminated the COLA in 2011, so then it was zero. So any years that you had prior to 2011 were calculated at a 3%. Everything post 2011 was at 0%. So if you were one of the more senior members, you still probably have a COLA that's above 1.5%. The legislative efforts in the special session reinstated a COLA to take effect after 60 months for special risk classification at 1.5%. Again, they would have to wait the 5 years in order to collect it. So a person on your side or our side in special risk classification is now going to be entitled to a 1% annual increase on that retirement fund after 60 months. And the fiscal impact of the sheriff's office alone, I suspect, is in the neighborhood of $2 million. I can ask Lisa or Mary to speak more specifically on that, but I did want to lay that out. The county manager and I had a telephone conversation as soon as the legislature made this decision, and this also is hot off the press. This is 2 weeks or 3 weeks old now. So I wanted to kind of just speak to that and make sure that was on your radar in the interest of transparency. So with that, unless Lisa or Mary has something that we want to add.
Not unless there's any questions.
Chairman?
So before we turn it over to questions, I'll just say thank you for your partnership, for everything that you do for the community, for the good work of all of the men and women that serve in your organization. I'll also point out, because you did it more subtly, and that is that the jail is typically a county responsibility, and in our county, the sheriff has graciously, because of the skills in the sheriff's office, taken over the management of the jail. And so when we look at our percentages, they are slightly different, or maybe largely different than other surrounding counties. So I do want to put that on the record. We appreciate your submission of a budget request that is under the amount of the increase this year. We were all delighted to hear that. We've had a rough few years, all for good reason, and we appreciate the work. We also appreciate your role in Tallahassee this year, and we are hopeful that you can bring some reasonable and responsible interactions. So with that, I'll ask my commissioners, do we have any specific questions with regard to the sheriff's budget? Commissioner Lockhart.
So near and dear to my heart is our school resource deputy program. When I was chairman of the county commission, it was something that Sheriff Esslinger and I worked on together to make sure that long before Parkland occurred, we had a qualified, certified law enforcement agent in every single one of our Seminole County public schools. Can you give us an update on that funding and where that stands today? And for the record, for those who don't know, we share, the county commission through the sheriff's budget shares in that fiscal responsibility with the school board currently.
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you for your leadership very early on. It was before many of the major disasters occurred across the country, and it was leaders like you and Sheriff Esslinger and so many others, our Board of County Commission at the time as well, that really forecasted the benefit of engaging with policing professionals with our youth. And I think that when we talk about policing on campuses, I think what rises immediately to our mind, and probably justifiably so, is protection and safety. But I think what we recognize is police officers do a lot more than that. They're able to connect the dots, whether they're a deputy sheriff or a municipal police officer, with something that may be happening at home, abuse, neglect, or abandonment occurs nearly 4,000 times in Seminole County alone. It's a horrific statistic, but it's the reality, and most of those cases are actually initially discovered on the school campus, and those officers and deputies can connect the dots. They also are doing educational training and components and all of these different things that we know are so relevant today. Once upon a time, we believed Nancy Reagan said, just say no to drugs and it would work. But we know now that sexting, texting, cyberbullying, all of these things are incredibly important. And our deputies and police officers have those curriculum to an age-appropriate environment. So I think that, just yesterday we had some conversations with our folks that are working in the school space. I believe that the state legislature has properly funded the schools, that there has not been any reduction in that. And I think that we will have ongoing conversations with the school board and the superintendent to ensure that there is no adjustment in the amount of school resource deputies that we have on the campuses. The leadership that we have with Chief Rick Francis overseeing school safety and security, that's something that we're incredibly grateful of. It is also rare. There's not another county that I'm aware of that has a member of the sheriff's office that is overseeing school safety and security, even for the municipalities. And I think that we all share the same passion that you have for our kids and our youth.
Thank you. Please keep me updated.
Well.
Any other questions? Commissioner Zimbauer?
Just a statement. I think it was covered by Oscar about the 1.5% COLA for the FRS when he said, we're not sure there's a lot of wisdom in Tallahassee. On one hand, they're sending down more mandates, and on the other hand, they want to take the money away that's supposed to pay for those mandates. As we all know, that doesn't work. But I want to thank the sheriff and your staff, your financial staff, all the men and women of law enforcement. You make our jobs so much easier in this community with your professionalism, your passion for what you do, and the compassion of the citizens out there, and all the work you do with the faith-based leaders in this community, your neighborhood policing. It makes a difference, huge difference, on how we all interact as citizens in this community. And it starts with the men and women of law enforcement, because it's you all that are on the streets each and every day interacting with our citizens. So thank you very much, and we appreciate this budget this year.
Thank you.
I'll close it out with a shout out to Chief Spriggs and Director Hope for doing all of the work that got us to under 30 minutes today. And under 5. So thank you all three of you for everything you've done.
I thank you all, and I mean, they're the best in the business. It's very rare to have CPAs that are going through the books and digging in and doing that, and I'm grateful for them. I meant every word that I said. You are true leaders in our community. It is an honor to stand with you and work on behalf of the citizens that we serve each and every day. And look, that does not happen in every one of the counties. You just have to turn on the television and watch what's happening out there. And I know you all professionally and personally, and I know how deeply you care about this community, and for that I am incredibly grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the list is our tax collector, J.R. Kroll.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Well, as you all know, there's a lot obviously going on in Tallahassee. Our office is, I'm hoping, not going to be as affected by it. That, with what we currently take in and with our excess fees every year, we should still be able to pay our bills, keep our employees, and keep the level of service that we wanted to for Seminole County. That's still a big unknown for us still, but we know this year we're coming up with, with what we've already got in the works. And I'll go over that a little bit here, but once you go through the introduction of how my office is a little different than the remainder of the constitutional offices. So in Florida, the tax collector budget's determined through the multi-step process, and we in Seminole County are a fee office model. Not every tax collector office in the county, in the state, is that way. There's a lot of fiscal restrained counties that don't have the funds, and we have to, like we said, we're a donor county. We end up giving money to help those counties out too. But we do make money in Seminole County due to the revenue that we make from the DMV side, plus the commissions on the collection of the taxes. Said our operations are funded by fees and commissions earned by services rendered, and those fees are outlined in the statutes and established by the Florida legislature, and we're required by Florida statute to submit our annual budget to the Department of Revenue, the same as the property appraiser. The budget is due on August 1st of every year, and that's when we also provide our final copy to the Board of County Commissioners. So we are a little, obviously, every year, I'm the odd duck out that's a little premature on my budget every year because we're not ready yet. We still have, quite a bit of another quarter left until we finish our budget. The Department of Revenue will review the budget to ensure it's adequate. Let me get through a couple of these. I'm actually missing up here. To ensure it's adequate for the tax collector's operations, and the department finds my budget inadequate or excessive, they'll return it to me and, tell me what needs to be corrected. I haven't had that happen yet, thank God. And then once it's approved by the department, the budget can't be reduced or increased without their approval. And then any fees that we do collect, which is where we're going to come to the next couple of years, this, I guess, like David said, shouldn't be affected this year, but we're looking for the following year, would be for excess fees in the budget. That's excess revenue, and that's what my office has to zero out every year. I'm telling it to preaching to the choir here. I know you guys know this, but I want to make sure everyone else understands that, we do zero out every year and return any excess fees that we did not spend within our budget. We return those back to the county. Now, here's what's going to get a little difficult because of the new ruling. So we had purchased a piece of land that we were looking to because of the new county services building that we'd be moving to is not really conducive for having a DMV office there. Between the security access and the parking and how many people I have running through my offices, it just would be a logistic nightmare to try to make that happen at the county service area. Plus, I figured I can build a cheaper DMV office still in Sanford for a lot less per square foot. We were talking like the $250 per square foot type of building to put in there. So that'd be significantly less expense for us and still keep our regular administrative services, tax collection, everything would still be at the county services building. Just the DMV part that's now here in Sanford, we would have to, find a new location for. So we did make a purchase of this property here in Sanford off MLK Boulevard and 46. Kind of by the Wayne Dench and that area, but it's on the MLK Boulevard, and that's where we intend to build a new office that we'd be using for a DMV office there. Now that one, I don't have that one, so I'm gonna have to wing it. I don't have that one written down. So we plan on doing a 12,000 square foot building on that corner. It's gonna be a replacement for the Sanford DMV office. But like I said, the other services we would be bringing back to the county service building. And then it says here, with approximate cost, we're estimating it at $4 million. So I am still trying to fund this myself, which I should be able to, because next year's we typically have $2 to $3 million at least a year in excess fees. So I have to put that budgetary and see what I can actually budget through the DOR in order to be able to fund this myself and get this building built in a race that I'm having to try to beat you guys from building the building in 5 Points, because I don't know where I'll house my DMV if we have to have a shutdown in between there. Our typical budget is under budget about $2 million every year. So being with that plus the excess fees that we do create from doing the DMV work, that usually gives us usually a typical around $3 million is what we're averaging, is what we return. So I'm planning this year a little lighter than that because I am starting and already started on this building, trying to prep the land. I'm trying to get out this money, especially because I'm on a time crunch, to try to see what I can get out of this year in order to start the process of building this building. Part of that's going to be the plans, the site work and stuff like that. If I can get that done as soon as possible for this year, and maybe I can squeeze out a little bit more between the next 2 years to get this project completely finished. But that's pretty much what I had for, right now, my budget going forward. Like I said, we don't have that finished yet, but that's not due till August 1st, but we do plan on just thinking what's going to be coming ahead and what we're looking at for this year to try to finish this project, which became a lot more stressful after this whole proposal went through the House bill. And was there any other questions, or?
So I do have a question. What has been the return to the county over the last few years for either of you, Tim or JR?
Repeat that again, I'm sorry?
Your
excess fees. Oh, the excess fee. Well, typically we're $3 million is what we're averaging. It's been a little higher on some and a little less on others. Depends on, usually it's our staffing, of how much we go through that. 70% of our budget is staffing, just because we have to, maintain that for the DMV side is really where all that work comes. And that's the unfortunate part with the state. I mean, we take such a small piece of the fees that come in. An example would be a registration renewal, $75. The state takes the majority of it, and we get $4.50 to do all the work. So that becomes, where we're subsidizing our DMV with our tax dollars is typically how it works every year. And that's why we tried, all the tax collectors in Florida now after COVID started having, when they realized they could say, well, that works a lot better, is to not take out-of-county residents. You only take your in-county because it is being subsidized by the county residents with their taxes.
And so what's the anticipated return? Do we have that in here somewhere?
No, I don't have an anticipated return this year. Like I said, I don't have, I got to get some numbers still that I'm working on with to find out expenses of what this building and what I could get finished this year. So that's why I didn't have any numbers yet. It's coming soon. I have a meeting with them, with another builder on just trying to get quotes and trying to get the best pricing. It's so hard with getting from a piece of dirt and say, how much is that going to cost to go from start to finish,
Is it fair to say it's going to be close to zero?
I would say never
Are you
zero.
trying
It's
not
never
to
been
say
zero.
that?
Yeah, no, I would never
I
do
hear
zero.
Commissioner Lockhart saying, I think it's going to be zero. But I think what we need you to say out loud is that it's zero, so that we're not delivering that message.
Zero, I just, like I said, it might be a couple $100,000 as a return, as opposed to being $3 million, because I'm trying to see what I can get done this year.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Zimbauer? Yeah, I'm sure.
Thank you. Some of the state stuff can now be done online, correct?
Yes.
How's that impacting your workload on some of the services that can now be done online versus having to come into your office?
Well, none of the driver's license services besides a renewal can be done online because just for security, you got to make sure you're dealing who's getting what coming to them. And then surprisingly, a lot of people still like to just come to the office. We do everything to try to make it as convenient as possible. We even changed it where we have, it's if you just do an EFS, or not the EFS, the e-check. That if you do an e-check on your taxes, you don't have to come in. You can pay online, and there's no fee for an e-check. So even then, they still want to come in and write me a check,
So I have to tell you, a lot of the folks in my district have been a little perplexed about the closing of the Oviedo office and moving to Winter Springs. And of course, since my district is in both, my Winter Springs constituents are very happy now it's closer to them. Any plans for Oviedo moving forward, just for the public knowledge?
Yeah. For the record, we do have some plans there. We've been holding off on it a little bit because we were waiting on the state to approve. So what we did instead, Oviedo was always a problem for us because it was only 4 people could be in that office. We couldn't do any driver's license services. So we were trying to make a decision: do we expand that one or do we close that one? That was our 2 choices. Being that when the Winter Springs office was open before I got there, I think the intention was to close Oviedo and have a bigger Winter Springs office that can do all services. But then they didn't close them, so they both stayed open within 6 miles of each other. So now we were, in light of deciding what we had to do, I said, well, I don't have the funds to open 2 offices The Sanford office is more important to get open because of, we're going to have to shut this one down and there's a larger office. So that's why we had to pivot and say, well, let's try to get this in the future. If we ever opened another Oviedo office, that's always a possibility, but we had to see what happens growth-wise. Currently, we have a private tag agency we engaged with that will be opening in that location.
Okay.
So it is an additional fee if you wanted to use that location for all your driver services.
Fair.
Just not, they don't do driver's license once again, but it was the same as it was. So they can do your tag renewals and license plates and everything that you could do there prior. It can still be done. Plus, we had them open a virtual kiosk in the Oviedo City Hall that they have there, and that one's come up there like a Zoom meeting. Press the button, they answer, and they can do all your services and have it mailed to you. So that takes people, gets them out of there. Once again, added additional service because this is a private tag agency. And then we also have another kiosk we just opened in the Alafaya Woods Publix. We had always intended to open it there, but it was under construction, so they wouldn't do it while it was under construction. So now that it's completed, we said, hey, we've got a lot of options in Oviedo that we've just expanded to actually, even though we're closing the office, it's only for a short period, we're trying to get it open by the end of this month to have that reopened again.
And although we don't know, and since we're already talking about something that has not happened yet, which is this ballot initiative that's coming in November, since you're going to have, if approved, since you'll have a lot less money to collect, how's that going to impact your workload, if at all?
Well, then I would say we might be looking at zero for returning of any excess fees at the end of the year, and I might have to make cuts too. I mean, that would be, we just don't know. I mean, our objective as the Tax Collector Association is what we would like to do is get our fair share of the fees for the DMV because of that unfair amount that they take and we do all the work from. So this gives us we've tried for years to try to get a push on that, and they just keep telling us no, no, no. So now, being that if we're short on it, our options are going to be, well, then let the state take it back and see if they want to handle it, which I don't think they will. So they might give us a little more bite on that apple to be able to afford the services.
Seems to be a familiar narrative as we're the ones that have to run the county. We have other people telling us how to do it.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lockhart?
So I am likely misapplying and appropriating my memory on something, so bear with me for a minute while I ask the county attorney a question. Where are we with constitutional officers and purchasing buildings, and are they deeded? We have some history with this. Again, not reflecting on you, but it's PTSD.
No, you're right. But the statutes were amended not that long ago to authorize tax collectors to own their own property.
Okay.
The only constitutional officer that can own their own property is the tax collector.
Okay. And so it's easy to armchair quarterback someone else's decision. It's done to me all the time. So I feel bad that I'm doing to you what has been done to me, and I don't like it. Was the idea of buying a piece of property and building your own building, was there something else not available for you to repurpose? It seems like you've taken on what a lot of people try not to do because it is so cumbersome. And is it too late to pivot? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, we've looked at other properties. I mean, there's nothing that we could find size-wise with the amount of parking. I mean, everyone knows the Lake Mary parking situation is atrocious. We're hoping to alleviate that with an office that has a lot more parking. And the land itself, which is the most difficult part to find, something that large that we did purchase, it would be for, what we want to do in the future here is have another driving course on this side of Seminole County, since the only driving course we have is in Castleberry. So our plan, we first build the building, get it open to make sure we're not without the services there or just blasting other offices. If we close down Sanford, it would be a nightmare. Mm-hmm. And then we'd have to wait until the new one is completed. But we want to eventually then in the future years be able to say we can build a driving course out there, and just for now it would be just left grassland, but we would want to make that into a future that we would be able to have that. That was the whole point behind that.
And is that property in the city of Sanford, or is it in Seminole County?
Yep, in the city of Sanford.
Bless you, my friend.
So I've heard. I got Altamont done, so Altamont was not easy either.
So I guess a follow-up question to that is then, just in the for the record category, the ongoing maintenance of that building is not our responsibility, nor insurance.
Insurance? Tim, do you know about that question?
I'm not sure.
Let's check into that one.
But
Yes, Commissioner.
to be clear, it does impact the bottom line, what's returned to the taxpayers in
Oh,
excess
it
fees.
absolutely does. But
That's where the impact is to us.
we understand that. I think the question is separation of tax collector and county.
Sure.
My church and state analogy is that if you're building your own, we're out.
Right.
We're not calling our teams, et cetera, and
Yeah, I've had one of my colleagues in Columbia County, he just built one. He had his fiscally constrained county. He had to go through an absolute nightmare with them to get bonds and everything with his county to pay it back. And now, of course, he just got this all done, and now he's definitely not going to have any money. He returns, I think, $1,500 is what he returns at the end of the year. So he's really not going to have the funds there just by a slight, difference change for him.
well, I appreciate the level set on it could be worse.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
With that, I think, seeing no further questions, thank you, JR, for your presentation.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate you and the work your team does.
Thank you very much.
And I see our Supervisor of Elections is anticipating the next call up to the podium, so she is on her way up.
Thank you.
She and her team.
If we still had phone books, we'd give you one.
Right.
My foot, sorry, that's maybe not as professional, but thank you. I will be quick. Want to introduce Jason Tiemann, Assistant Supervisor of Elections, and Rebecca Tu, who is my Administrative Services Manager. You've all met, but want to put that on the record. I'm very grateful to them for helping us get to this point. Thank you, Tim and your team. Thank you, Darren and your team, and everyone for meeting with us to move through the questions. Before we get into the presentation, I do want to brag a lot on my team and what we have accomplished over this last year. A lot of people say, oh, you're just an elections office. You only work every 2 years when you have an election, and that could not be further from the truth. So here are some fun stats, because I like stats. This past year, we processed 62,000 constitutional amendment petitions through our office. That's a requirement where we sit and we look at every single signature on every piece of document to verify if it is a valid petition or not, and if a constitutional amendment will make it to the ballot. Fun fact, 0 made it to the ballot this year. We processed 33,594 vote-by-mail requests. We processed 763,164 changes to voter records. That is address changes, party changes, name changes, deceased records, address, that is anything that you could have changed on your voter records, we process that. It is not a bot system that handles that. It is a person handling every single one of those. We went through 2 system conversions. We migrated from Google to Microsoft, and we, of course, as you know, brought accounting in-house and within warp speed implemented a new accounting system. We have a new website that we feel is extremely user-friendly, provides a lot more information. If you go out there, you can now see some historical reports on voter registrations and turnout for elections. We have done 27 office tours over this past year, and for the first time in Jason's memory, we had 100% of our high schools participate in voter registration events.
Nice. Congratulations.
We had a couple of schools in the past that had never participated in this manner. We changed it up a bit as well and have shared with you that we do a mock election in these voter registration events, and we put a constitutional amendment question on every single ballot, and it is quite fun. The constitutional amendment, as you all have discussed today, are very confusing. And for the record, for those of you who don't know, authors are generally the people who want that constitutional amendment passed, whether it be the sponsor of the marijuana initiative or the legislation. So we put a constitutional amendment on these ballots that is very confusing, that is just the norm, where we let the students vote on, if you vote yes, you're voting for more homework. If you vote no, you're voting for no more homework. And of about the 80 groups that have gone through, we have gotten 7 groups that have gotten it right. It has turned into a really great civics lesson.
Wow.
In those 7 groups, one student figured it out and started advocating to the students next to them and in front of them, and it spread like wildfire. And it was a great civics lessons on being an informed voter and advocating for what's on the ballot. So a lot of fun there. Another win, as you may have seen in the news, we partnered with Lake Mary High School to do a 3D printing job that replaced a piece in a cartridge in a printer tray for us. Not a big deal, you think, but the vendor said, we can't give you the part. We have to sell you the whole tray at $125 per tray. Then we'd turn around and throw the old tray into the landfill. Rather than replacing a 2-inch piece of plastic, it saved our office $16,000 from replacing. It gave a student some hands-on experience. It gave a teacher some hands-on experience. And it was a really great partnership, and we look forward to doing a lot more of that. We did our first I Voted sticker contest. You will see your I Voted stickers that you get this year with when you come in to vote. Miss Arwen Yan from Tuscaloosa Middle School did a fabulous design, and we had a wonderful time presenting it to her. We have done some really great operational efficiency changes in our office through reorganization and some equipment upgrades, and you will see that experience when we go through the elections this year. And for the first time ever, our entire team, 100% of our office is election center trained. We send them through training that's a national program. It is free, and we have them do that within their first 2 weeks of coming into the office. We had all of our existing employees do it, and it has been a really great experience to have our staff get this additional training. Some important dates, as we have all talked about it, there are 10 Tuesdays before Election Day. 10 Tuesdays. July 20th is the deadline to register to vote or change your party. August 6th is your deadline to register for vote by mail. For the record, I said we have 33,594 vote by mail registrations. On average, we have about 60,000 people that register to vote by mail. It has been a concerted effort of ours to get the word out to make sure people know that their vote by mails have expired. So we anticipate some heavy load in the next couple of months to get them re-registered. August 8th through 15th is early voting, and August 18th is Election Day. Currently, this is a qualifying week, so all the candidates throughout the state are being qualified. By the end of this week, you will know who's going to be on your ballot, and so stay tuned. We are in the starting process of hiring an estimated 750 election workers, because it takes about that many to help us run an election. And one of the things our office did not get impacted by was a special session, thank goodness, because it would have affected the voters. Congressional redistricting happened throughout the state. New maps were designed. Congressional District Number 7 did not change. What that meant for Seminole County is we didn't have to come ask you for $350,000 to do a mailing to notify everybody that they're voting, that their congressional district changed either by number or by lines. And so that was a really good thing for us. So presentation-wise for the budget, I will start off with, as I mentioned, we've done a lot of list maintenance this past year. When I came into office, we had 350,490 voters. We are at 337,157. You can see some of the changes here. You can see the history. This is kind of average over the last couple years. You see us go up and down based on moves in, moves out. There's a big concerted effort right now with the state to make sure that citizenship is, the state of Florida passed the Florida version of the SAVE Act, and so the state of Florida, along with us, are having to do extended list maintenance to make sure that our voter rolls are 100% clean so that we have no problems at the polls. And so you can kind of just see the activity that we've gone through over this past year. We're still working on a bit more. We have identified in our voter registration system, we have about 4,500 voters that have no identifiers, the required identifiers of your last 4 digits of your social or your driver's license. And we are getting ready to do a mail out for that. So if you see any negative mail, any social media, send it our way. We're happy to address it. It's just something that we have to do to prevent any issues at the polls. As I mentioned, we went into the high schools. That netted 968 new voter registrations in Seminole County, which is pretty awesome. All right, the legislation session, there's 3 pieces of legislation that have impacted our office. Yes, please, thank you. That you need to be aware of, and of course, there are no funding allocations that come with any of these. House Bill 1205 was passed in the 25 legislative session. How it impacts us is this is a citizen or a sponsor petition drive to get something on the ballot to change the Constitution. In this past year, there were 21 initiatives out there where groups were trying to get the Constitution changed. Again, I said none of them passed, but the legislation has decided to make it a little bit meatier, stronger, and a little bit harder for these amendments to make it to the ballot. Petitions changed from 1 page to 5 pages. We have to touch every single one of those pages. We have to process every single one of those pages. We also have a requirement now, any petition that is accepted in our office related to these constitutional amendments, we have to mail a notice to that voter so that they have an opportunity to say, yes, that is true, or no, that's not true, it's fraud, and they have to send a notice paid for by us, not by the state, to the state to let them know that their petition was submitted fraudulently. Unfunded mandate again. So in 2025-26, we processed 62,000 petition initiatives. The fail rate was about 54%. So we sent 30,000 pieces of mail out to voters to let them know we accepted their petition, and they had the opportunity then to turn around and mail the state if they agreed or didn't agree that they signed that petition. This is all part of House Bill 1205. Again, a cost that we have to pay. We have to absorb the mailing, the printing, and the postage. The nice part, I guess, if you want to say that, of this bill is it allowed us to change the charge that we charge for signature verification for petition initiatives only. So we did a cost calculation, and our cost to do one of these petitions, validate one of these petitions from beginning to end, rose from 94% to $4.99. So if a petitioner wants to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot, they must pay our office $4.99 to validate each signature petition that comes in.
Wow.
In 2026, it's going to be quite amazing. Again, no funding available for that. House Bill 991, which is the Florida version of the SAVE Act, passed this year. Lots of changes that actually affects the tax collector's office and our office. We now are the stopgap for citizenship verification. If a citizen cannot be verified through DHSMV, they have to come to the Supervisor of Elections office if they want to vote, and we have to be the ones to determine if they are a valid citizen or not. What that means for us is people who don't have driver's licenses maybe people who surrender their driver's licenses at retirement facilities or shut-ins, homeless, and want to vote, they will be coming to our office to prove citizenship. This is going to require additional training for us. We've also allocated just a little bit more in litigation because we've already seen 3 litigation cases related to this. And I could see litigation coming to us if we have issues with a citizenship from the voter. The Department of State right now estimates that about 5% of the voters statewide are going to have issues. If citizenship is not identified, if they are not marked identified as a citizen in our system, and they come to vote, those voters have to vote provisional ballots, and we have to work them through the canvassing board process. For us, that means if we go by state, that's about 16,000 voters that we would have provisional ballots for, and Commissioner Zimbauer, I know, can you imagine processing 16,000 ballots, Commissioner Lockhart, through canvassing board? I did have a conversation with J.R. Kroll. We both don't think that in Seminole County that number is going to be that high. We're estimating 0.5%. Over the past year, we've removed 15 people from our rolls for citizenship issues, so don't anticipate it being an issue, but it is something that we have to work on. Additionally, part of that bill removes identification that is allowed to be presented at time of voting starting next year. Not this year. This year is status quo. But starting next year, you will not be able to use your student ID, your HOA ID, your community ID, or your debit or credit card. And so every piece of document that we have in our office that lists ID as acceptable use has to be updated, and therefore another expense in our office. The last piece of legislation that passed that is going to have a little bit of an effect on us is House Bill 967, which requires all government agencies to accept online payment options. Online payment options only. We don't have to do it in-house, so we don't have to have a credit card system at the desk. And it's only for statutorily, I'm going to say it the backwards way. You can only use it for things not already in statute requiring other payment methods. So for candidate qualifying, you still have to write a check. You cannot do a debit card online. The nice thing about this is it does allow us to pass along the fees to anyone who decides to use that. However, it does not give us funding for the compliance component that you have to have when you do online payments. So just wanted to make you aware that there's some 2 sides to these that are good and bad that are going to hit our office. So our budget for this next year, we are requesting a budget of $5.75 million. It is an 8.59% increase. However, I want to give you some clarification on that. 60% of that increase is related to the election that is in this budget. So 40% is related to the operations, the staffing, the paper increases, the benefit increases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My office is 0.44% of the entire county's budget. So we are talking tiny, tiny money here for you guys. And we're 18% of the 3% of the constitutional amendment budget that is shown. What is different in your budget that you have never seen before is revenue. And I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. In this 26-27 budget, we have a general election for the gubernatorial race that is here in November. We will have 2 weeks of early voting, and we have the actual election day. And so that is where the increased costs are. That 60% increased cost is related to this. I wanted to give you some turnout numbers so that you can understand and anticipate what you might see at the polls this year. Generally, in a primary turnout, you see, generally, last election, in the primary turnout, there was 25.46, or 2022, I'm sorry, was 25.46% return, and last year, 17.66% return. I went back to 22 because I wanted to kind of see apples to apples, gubernatorial turnout. In the general, which is where you're going to see everything on the ballot, we can anticipate about a 73% turnout. In our budget, what we did is we do have a net increase of 2.5 FTEs. This is 2 voter services clerk and a half of a warehouse tech, where we have increased him from part-time to full-time. The volume that we have presented to you previously, where I was bragging on my team, that was with 6 voter services clerks. With the increase in the legislation, we can't continue at the capacity, or I'm going to have burnout. I'm going to have overtime that's going to take us into ridiculous rates. And so we've got to increase our staff to get to avoid big challenges in our office. I did put a 10% budget increase and a 3% COLA increase. Operationally, Rebecca wanted me to remind, because this is a very good point, in fourth quarter alone, the CPI increased by 3.61%. A lot of our operational stuff is ballot paper, it's printing, it's toner. People is a big part of it, but when it comes to elections, our expendables are pretty large, and so that's really where all of our money is going towards. Again, our increased costs are related to the legislation that was passed. We have increased in printing requirements. The postage, you may or may not be aware, but the USPS has increased their postage rates. Once again, they have also changed in recent years how they charge us back for return mail. And so we are getting hit at higher rates than we used to be, where they used to just return it for free, or at a bulk rate. We now get charged full charge for return mail that comes to us, which we're legislatively required to send it the way we send it, so that we can do list maintenance based on how the post office sends it back to us. Because we thought we were going to have to do congressional redistricting, we moved faster than we anticipated and brought the GIS mapping back into our office. That we used to rely on the county's system for probably the past 4 or 6 years. Previous to that, we had it in-house. We brought it back in-house so that we can have some better maps for our constituents and for our candidates when it comes to getting out there and doing your electioneering. And then we have seen some significant costs on the security prices that we have gotten from our vendors when it comes to tracking our equipment and the license fees for all of the equipment that we have to run our business. What you have not seen ever on your budget from the SOE office is revenue. And this office always has revenue that comes in. And so what you see in front of you is a different, it's challenging to compare from past because the revenue's never been budgeted. And we have to expend it. So when we have candidates come in, every candidate, 95% of the candidates write a check, very few qualify by petition. That's revenue that comes into our office. It's also 100% expense because the state gets that money and the political parties get that money. We don't get to keep it. But we have an expense that we've recorded on your budget that previously didn't have a revenue on the budget. We also collect a grant for some security measures. We get a federal grant. That's very rarely been recorded on here. We also get the petition verification fees for signature verification. We also get public records requests, and we get a couple other little things here or there that have never been budgeted. And so you will see on your budget revenue because a good accountant budgets revenue when you have expenses, and so here we are. And so most of that revenue is passed through. We did budget for the potential of 2 petition initiatives to come through our office, which is the biggest bulk of the number on there. If we don't have those come through, you're not going to have the expenses that come through, and so it's a wash. We do have a couple of federal grants pending that I want you to make you aware of that could affect us in the future. We have submitted a budget to a federal grant to do 100% refresh on our tabulation equipment. These are the tabulation machines that go out to the elections, the polling locations. We are at 10 years of a life cycle of these election machines, these tabulation machines, and we need to start doing a refresh. The vendor has expressed that they are no longer going to replace the existing ones. They're going to have limited support for them, and so we are going to have to, in the near future, replace them. So we have gone out and we've requested a grant for those. And then we are applying for a new grant, a new federal grant for the replacement of our secure ballot intake stations that have some additional security measures. Over the past several years and several elections, there's been an increased attack on ballot intake stations. Ours are physically monitored. There has to be a person stationed at one 100% of the time. However, there are people that still try to stuff the ballots, or there are people that have put bombs in or set fire to ballot intake stations. And so we are looking at some that have some expanded security measures in them. And if we can get them through the grant, we will. If not, we'll stay status quo with what we have. We just won't upgrade or spend them. Couple of things that are going to impact us over this next year. We did get notification from the vendor that our vote-by-mail verifier machine will be null and void as of January. And so we have built that into our budget to replace our initial quotes that we're getting start at $200,000. And we need to start looking at replacing our vehicles, which are showing some wear and tear and some challenges with some other just minor equipments that we need to do in our office. You guys we've had many, many discussions. You've seen our building. I just want to thank Darren and his team for continuing to look at what's best for the county and what's best for our office. We are on a 18,000 square foot building with 7,000 of that is our warehouse, which is the challenge. It's a safety challenge. If we have an issue and have to get that equipment out fast, or if we have any kind of a personnel issue, we could lose equipment. And so I appreciate your efforts in trying to help us look for something that can better accommodate all of the equipment that we have to have. And hopefully we'll get there in the next couple years, pending whatever's going on with legislation next year. And then the last slide, just wanted, this is, we'll go back to Supervisor of Elections, where he used to like to brag, I'm the lowest cost per voter in the state of Florida. We were at our state association last week, and it was the joke. Honestly, yeah, he used to brag about it, and not sure that that's something to brag about, which it's great to be the lowest cost, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you get the greatest quality or the greatest return on information out to your voters. And so this just shows you the trend of where we are. We're still, when it comes to Central Florida, we're still at the bottom. And so we're still being as frugal as possible. We're still at the bottom. We're not anticipating trying to beat and be above our counterparts in the cost per voter, but I think our office has kind of been underfunded for quite some time, and we've really worked frugally and respectfully with your team to get us up to par, and it's really kind of shown with the culture in the office. We've got some very happy staff. When the voters come in, we've gotten a lot of feedback. The 27 tours have been very well received. They couldn't believe once they got in the back, oh my gosh, this is what you're dealing with. And so with that, your question, I'm going to just anticipate it with the several past members is what are your anticipation in giving back? My belief is I don't like to fluff my budget, so I'm going to try to build my budget as close to where I think I'm going to land, hoping that I don't have to come back for an ask, but also hoping that I'm not going to be sitting here giving you back hundreds or $1 million every year. So if I could just put that on record to please anticipate that you're going to get a pretty zero-based budget from me where we're just trying to make sure that my ask is really what my anticipated ask and spend is going to be.
Well, thank you for that. I will tell you that I think we all appreciate a zero-based budget. We appreciate when revenue that's coming in is actually put in the books. I've never thought I'd be saying that
Indeed.
from here, but that is greatly appreciated. And all of the transparency throughout the entire couple of years it's been significant. So we appreciate you. We appreciate the team and all the work that you've done to get here. Commissioner Delari's chomping at the bit over here.
Well, no, I'm not chomping at the bit, but I wanted to, thank you, Madam Chair, say thank you for your hard work. I mean, throughout the year, I know you've contacted all of us on a regular basis, and you've been keeping us very informed, and it's very refreshing. I mean, your professionalism, your team is truly amazing. You've done a phenomenal job, and you're doing everything right, and I'm glad that you are the supervisor of election. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, that was so great. All I have to say is ditto.
There we go.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate everything Commissioner Delary said. I second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you for putting the revenue source in there. It's something I questioned in this budget the whole time.
Yep.
Not to mention observing when canvassing that citizens would put a dollar bill or 60 cents in the envelope with the ballot because there was no postage stamp on it. And my question was, what do you do with that money? And it was like crickets. But I will tell you that I've been to your office 4 times now since you started making your changes, and it's a totally different atmosphere. Very professional. It seems like everybody's happy to be there. Seems like there's some structure as to what's actually taking place. Good work, bravo. I think our citizens are going to be well served, and they're going to be very appreciative. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
County Manager, anything else to say before we break for lunch?
No, ma'am, and so we will adjourn until 1:30.
All right, we are adjourned till 1:30.
I'll be late because I have to go take care of the dog.